What's up, everyone? It's Benedict here, aka BHL Hudson. Welcome back to the BHL2 channel, and it is the end of the year. I hope you've enjoyed your Christmas festivities, or Hanukkah, or whatever you celebrate, or if you don't celebrate anything, just hope you're having a nice December. With it being the end of the year, it's time for a lot of end-of-year lists. Over on the main channel, BHL Hudson, I've posted a top 10 best of the year, top 10 worst of the year. But here on the BHL2 channel, where we take it a bit more casually, where we do a bit more long-form content, I thought it could be interesting to rank every film I saw in 2026 from worst to best. Because I did see a lot of movies. I saw 60 movies this year. And, some of them I won't get much more out of them than getting to put them in a video like this. So, I feel like it finally pays off, in a way, to have seen some of the shit that I saw this year. But anyway, yeah, there's a lot of movies here to go through, so I think we should just dive into it. I will say, disclaimer off the bat, I'm recording this a little in advance, because, it's holidays coming up, so I'll be a bit busy. So I don't have Avatar 3, Wake Up Dead Man on here, other stuff that'll be coming out. I can put that down in the description, where they would be placed on this list. And also, there are movies that don't come out where I am until later on, normally like early next year, movies like Hamnet and that kind of stuff. So there's some movies that I won't have on this list, but I saw a lot of movies this year. I saw most of the movies I'd like to think. So yeah. Let's go through it. I'll breeze a little bit through the top and bottom 10 because I have the whole videos on BHL Hudson. But let's go through it, starting with number 60, the worst movie I saw this year. It's got to be Hurry Up Tomorrow. Just a kind of depressing watch as someone whose number one artist was The Weeknd on Spotify this year. But yeah, like I'm sure I talked about in that worst of the year video, unbelievably self-indulgent, and it's so much so that it's cringeworthy, like it's embarrassing to watch. And it has a lot you would think going for it with the director. Even watching the trailer, you think, okay, this could be sort of aesthetically interesting, at least visually interesting. But it's it's not that. I guess like there are some visuals that aren't terrible, but it's just like it's mind-numbingly uninteresting and bad. It's kind of hard to describe how bad it is. You kind of just have to like watch it to experience it. Although I would not recommend that. Also, just I'm a big fan of, I love the album Hurry Up Tomorrow, and I'm a big fan of what you can do with like music videos, or, even a little bit what they do with Euphoria, like combining music with cool visuals and all this kind. I love that kind of shit. I didn't even need a good story, great characters, just, cool vibes and music, the Weeknd's music that shouldn't be so hard to do. Did not pan out here. Horrifically bad movie. Worst of the year. One of my like only 3 half stars on Letterboxd, so that should tell you something. Moving on, number 59 on my list is Five Nights at Freddy's 2, which I saw just a couple days ago when I'm recording this, or a few days ago. Yeah, it's FNAF 2. What are you expecting? To me, this is exactly the same as FNAF 1. Like it feels. Like I said in the podcast episode, it's almost like the director's an auteur, because I can really feel the FNAF 1 vision here with FNAF 2. It's the same shit. it's pretty funny. Like, I enjoyed watching it with my podcast co-host and friend, Freddie. We had a lot of fun watching it. But it's just, there is a bit of it that's quite boring. Like, all the stuff that's not FNAF related, like the first film where Josh Hutcherson has these, like, flashbacks and dreams and whatever. There's some stuff like that here that's also just uninteresting. And it's just poorly made. It's very poorly made. It's not very scary. That being said, it's not scary at all. That being said, I think it works quite well for the target demographic, that being like FNAF fans, or like it's clearly meant to be a horror movie for 12-year-olds. Like if you're a 12-year-old having a sleepover, I feel like this would go pretty hard as that kind of like entry-level horror movie. I'm not 12 years old though, and it was really, really bad. Next up at number 58, I've gone with War of the Worlds. Now, objectively, this is obviously worse than FNAF 2 and Hurry Up Tomorrow. This is, like, objectively worse than most films ever made. I've bumped it up a bit for the enjoyment factor, because I had quite a lot of fun watching it. It's, like, a very funny movie. But yeah, there's no point in really, like, digging into, like, what's wrong with War of the Worlds? Like, what technically went wrong here? You can just watch it. You could watch, like, 5 minutes of it and be like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen, the cheapest feeling thing I've ever seen, like... yeah, it speaks for itself. Very funny, though. Of this, like, bottom tier, definitely the one I would recommend the most. Like, honestly, the more we go up this like, bottom 10, kind of the less I feel like I'd recommend them. Because at these bottom three, I feel like there's some value in watching them either because they're funny or like somewhat, I don't know, you could learn something from like why Hurry Up Tomorrow doesn't work at all, despite what it should have going for it. But yeah, as we move up here, we have number 57, Fixed. What's his name? Andrei Tartakovsky? I'm thinking of Andrei Tarkovsky. Andrei Tarkovsky did not make the movie Fixed. Gendy Tartakovsky, who's apparently, made some great animation over the years, been part of like some really good projects. Don't know why he made this. I will give it credit, it's better than the trailer makes it look. The trailer makes it look like impossibly bad, like trying to be bad type of movie. And it's not that terrible, but it's still pretty inexcusably terrible. Just a comedy about dogs having sex that's like, it's, raunchy and crass, and it's just not very funny. I just can't really picture. I was gonna say like maybe it's not my humor, but I'm a fucking idiot. I if you listen to my podcast, you know that I will laugh at lots of crass and stupid stuff. And I was just like, man, just why? A bit of a painful watch. And just one of those where you watch and it's like, man, people put like time and effort into this. Like animators had to like work on this for a while. Like this had to go through, like producers had to approve this and writers had to go through multiple drafts and whatever. And it's like to make this movie, like just kind of crazy to think about. But yeah, number 56, I've gone with Fountain of Youth, the Indiana Jones National Treasure, but like with no soul type movie. This one, honestly, this kind of like pissed me off more than a lot of these, because it's just emblematic of that modern day like streaming type movie that just has no. I guess maybe I shouldn't generalize about streaming type movies, because obviously there's some movies that come to Netflix or whatever. We'll talk about there was like Jay Kelly or whatever. Films that have value and whatnot. Frankenstein as well. It was a Netflix thing, but I don't know. Just when it's slop, it's real slop, and yeah, that's the thing. You could watch this and be like, okay, that was like competent. It's not War of the Worlds. Like it's not incompetent. There's just no soul, man. It just feels like you're watching a fake movie. Like that's and I would take War of the Worlds, where it's like people who clearly did not know what they were doing or had no money or whatever it is made this movie, and it's kind of funny. Then like a competent nothing movie, and that's how I feel about Fountain of Youth. Like yeah, there are things that there are action scenes that are bearable, and it's obviously a great cast and whatever, but it's so full of cliches. It's so, the creative parts of it are so devoid of effort. That's what I feel like the technical parts of it, lots of people put effort into films and whatnot, but the parts that would make it stand out, that would make it have something to it, that's where it's lacking. And I was not a fan of that. Number 55, I've got the Minecraft movie. A Minecraft movie. Talked about this. Yeah, I've talked about these bottom 10, but yeah, it's the Minecraft movie. Like, it's kind of funny, for what it is. It's a bit like FNAF. You've seen some YouTube shorts ranking Jack Black sped up, slowed down moments, whatever. There's something sort of amusing about that. And if you're in the age demographic, it's kind of interesting. It's like, are you in the age demographic where you like the movie unironically because it's like a fun Minecraft movie, or then, which I would say is like an 8-year-old, or are you in the like 12-year-old demographic where you like it because you saw like chicken jockey YouTube shorts? And I don't know. There's multiple layers, I guess, to people who could love this movie. So maybe it does have some value, but yeah, it's just a bad kids movie, poorly written. Yeah, it's Minecraft. It's bad. Jurassic World Rebirth and Tron Ares are number 54 and 53. I'll group these together because they are largely similar. I'm actually a little surprised. I think Jurassic World was definitely better than Tron Ares. Those should swap around. Because Tron Ares was, some cool visuals. Actually, okay, there was stuff in Tron Ares I enjoyed. Cool visuals, the music set to it and everything. But just, it's just bad blockbuster, shitty, generic blockbuster movie with bad characters and plot, and, you don't really give a shit, and no, like, emotional investment. But there was some cool action, and I guess it's sort of the same with Jurassic World, where there's some cool action. The dinosaurs, they look good, generally, but it's just kind of the same bullshit again. I think Jurassic World pissed me off more just because of, like, the I wasn't expecting Tron Ares to be great. The trailer looked kind of cool, but, like, just the paper thinness of Jurassic. Like, also, Jurassic Park has a little bit of a legacy, I suppose. Like, Tron, I think Tron 1 and Tron Legacy are both, like, kind of mid movies, and then, they made a bad movie. Oh, well. Like, Jurassic Park, there's potential there. I even like Jurassic World. I thought the first Jurassic World was pretty cool. And just the paper thinness of, like, the scene where Scarlett Johansson and Mahershala Ali are talking about, like, their backstories and why we should care about them as characters. And they might as well just, like, turn to the camera and say, like, and this is the part where I tell you about my character and my son that died, which will come up later. And it's, like, it's so bare bones. Like, almost at that point, like, don't even bother. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just kind of insulting. But yeah, I guess there's some coolish action, but I just... It's also just, with Jurassic, it's like, you couldn't do anything else with the dinosaurs? We're back on the island, or an island. Like, you couldn't think of, like, something interesting to do? Yeah, just bad. Number 52 is Snow White. Yeah, this is also kind of a self-explanatory one. I will say, I don't feel that strongly about Snow White, where I'm like, this is the end of cinema, this is so terrible. Like, I guess that's a bit like a Minecraft movie where, it's not that deep. It's Snow White. It was going to be bad. It's made for kids, whatever. Yes, it's bad and it's corporate and it's all this. But it's not, I wasn't like, I remember when it came out, people were talking about it like it was the fucking, end of days that the Snow White movie was this bad. And yeah, it's bad, but it's not that much worse than, your average bad Disney live action remake, I guess. Like, it's probably the worst of them, to be fair. But yeah, I mean, it looks shitty. I'll give it that. Like, the seven dwarves look, horrific nightmare creatures, the way they did that. And, like, the costumes look weird and fake in a way that's, the other Disney films, live action remakes, I feel like haven't had that. But yeah, it's bad. It is what it is. Snow White. And number 51, or number 10 on my actual list, I suppose, of worst movies, would be The Monkey, which I know some people actually liked. I know some people enjoyed, so I feel a little... Actually, I don't feel bad. Whatever, difference of opinion. But, yeah, I was not crazy about Longlegs. I think I've expressed my thoughts on that, where I feel like the first bit was really cool and mysterious and vibey and very unsettling. And then as it got into more of, like, the plot, I was like, wait, this is, like, the dumbest thing ever. It's like they had a lot of movie setups. When you have a cool setup, it's kind of like a magic trick or something, and you're really excited to see how it's going to play out or whatever, and then it's a bit disappointing when you're like, wait a minute, they actually don't know what they're doing, and they're just kind of like throwing shit at it. And that's a little bit what Longlegs felt like to me, where it was like this great setup. It's like, oh my god, how is this crazy mystery horror all going to tie together? And I was like, oh, okay, that's how. But The Monkey does not even have the unsettlingness. It's meant to be more comedic, I suppose. It's not meant... Is it meant to be scary, really? I don't feel like it was even meant to be scary. It was sort of more like a Final Destination type thing, where... I've only seen the most recent of those, but, like, those movies don't feel like sort of like horror-y. They're sort of more like, yeah, crazy kills, what's going on, mystery with, like, yeah, crazy murders, but not like Longlegs was scary in parts. This was never scary. I don't know if it was meant to be, but it was also never funny. That's the problem. Like, it was a horror comedy that was not... If it was meant to be scary, it was not scary, and it was meant to be funny, and it was not funny, in my opinion. I just remember also just some, like, shitty CGI, like, with these kind of, like, kills movies, like Final Destination or whatever, or Saw, I guess. You want the kills at least to be interesting or cool or not look like shit. I remember there's a part with, like, bees or something, where, like, bees go in a guy's mouth or something. I was just like, this looks like fucking ass. Like, that's the main thing I remember about it. Or even, the last shot of the movie where, yeah, I've seen that, like, play as a reel or short or whatever, where it's like, man, this movie is so fucked up. And I guess that's meant to be part of the comedy, the setup of it, but it all just feels fake to me. Like, I did not fuck with the movie The Monkey. I'm sorry, Osgood Perkins. Moving on, we have number 50, Captain America: Brave New World, another film I feel like I've talked about at fucking length, and frankly, I'm sick of talking about because it's such an uninteresting movie. Yeah, it's just a bad superhero movie. It's, modern MCU at its worst. I mean, not literally at its worst, but, all of the stuff kind of distilled into one movie, where it's kind of generic and boring. Like, it's not as bad as the Quantumania or the Marvels. Like, there's a couple of moments that were kind of cool, I guess, and, I like Anthony Mackie, but it's just so, like, sterilized and corporate and, like, not that the MCU is, has not been it's not like an avant-garde crazy franchise, but it's like, if you were originally an MCU hater, can you imagine them being even more sterilized in corporate? Like, that's what this is, where it's just, you don't feel anything watching it. It just kind of washes over you. And yeah, disappointing film. Not that I had huge expectations for it, but just, the Captain America trilogy, some of the better MCU stuff for sure. And then this one, yeah. And they're letting Mackie down, man, because Mackie's a super charismatic guy, and they're giving him this movie. Come on. Number 49, I've got Play Dirty, which also hurts the soul a little bit to put my former goat of mine, Shane Black, up here. Shane Black was, one of the... I feel like he was in there with Edgar Wright a little bit as one of the first directors whose, like, filmographies I watched, and who I was like, if people ask you who your favorite director is, it's like, oh, have you heard of, like, Shane Black? He does these, like, really cool buddy comedies or whatever. And I was excited when I saw that he was doing another buddy comedy, because he did, The Predator, which was god-awful. But, he's done The Nice Guys before, he did Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, two of my favorite films ever. Like, I love those movies. And so for him to do another buddy cop movie, or buddy robber movie, I suppose, was exciting. Mark Wahlberg and Lakeith Stanfield. I mean, it makes it look more like a buddy movie on the poster. It's mostly like sort of a Mark Wahlberg plus the team heist movie. But, yeah, it's just... I think it was originally supposed to have Robert Downey Jr. in it, and then, RDJ to Mark Wahlberg is like not... It's not the worst downgrade, but I feel like it is a downgrade. And I do like Lakeith Stanfield. But basically, this movie, it was the most, like, depressing moment where I saw The Nice Guys with my dad in the cinema, like, whenever, 10 years ago when that came out. And then I was like, hey, Shane Black, the guy who did The Nice Guys, he has a new movie out, and it's out on, whatever streaming service it came out on. Let's watch it. It'll be great. And I didn't say it'll be great, but I was like, let's watch it. It could be fun. And we put it on, we got like 20 minutes in, and there was just like a feeling in the room, and then we're just like, I don't think we're gonna watch this. And we just straight up turned it off, because it was that fucking bad. Like, it was that... It's meant to be stupid, I guess. Like, the opening scene, there's a race track, and the car, goes on the racetrack, and there's a horse jumping over some bullshit, and it's obviously meant to be bullshit. But it felt a little bit Matthew Vaughn, like, Argyle coded, where just because it's, like, weird and absurd, it's like, it's not automatically funny, and if it kind of looks like dog shit, which it did a little bit, it also doesn't hit as hard. There were, like, jokes in that first bit that weren't that funny, the action wasn't, like, that interesting, and you could just tell it was going to be, like, a generic, shitty movie, and we just turned it off, and we watched fucking, like, I think we watched Analyze This instead. A better evening, for sure. Better use of our time. But yeah, I went back and finished it, and just depressingly generic. It's the Fountain of Youth problem. That's what I mean. Again, not all streaming stuff is bad, but when it's slop, it is slop. Like, it is, for a guy who made such a funny buddy movie, to make this, like, I don't know if he's washed, or if it's circumstantial, or... if someone asked him to do things a certain way, there was pressure to do something, or if he just, has lost his touch or something, but just not funny, not exciting, very generic, shitty movie. I hate to see it. Speaking of high-profile directors making some straight buns, we have Highest to Lowest from Spike Lee. Now, this was not as buns as it could have been, I suppose, as evidenced by Oldboy. That is as bad as a remake of a classic Asian film can get. But still, yeah, the fact that I went into this with the expectations that this will, like, decimate one of the greatest films of all time, and it was only just sort of normal bad, it wasn't, like, atrocious, it's still not great. Like, it's not great that that's the standard that I had. I'm like, well, at least, it didn't make me, like, hate the art of cinema and what's become of it. Like, yeah, it's an interesting concept of how to do a remake, I guess, of taking something... Because the original High and Low is set in post-war Japan, and that setting, and the financial situation of the characters and society and all that setting plays a lot into the film and its themes. And so to take that story and put it in, modern day New York and the rap scene and all that kind of stuff, that's pretty cool. That's kind of interesting. You can do something different there and, like, touch on new themes and maybe some interesting parallels and what, that's kind of cool. And the highlight of the film is when Denzel and A$AP Rocky are doing this, like, rap battle at the end where they're, like, talking, but they're threatening each other, but they're connecting and all this. That was quite interesting. But But there's just so many choices in this that are like, why did you do this? Like, I've harped on the music, but like the fucking music, man. Like, unacceptable choice of music. I'm sorry. I know Spike Lee is like a big music guy, which almost makes it more embarrassing that like for this tense, thriller, heist, whatever the fuck, drop in the money, whatever they're doing, you pick this like woodland creatures dancing in a circle type music. And it's like, we need some whimsical tunes for this really tense scene. I don't know, just whatever the creative direction there was, I assume maybe it was like an homage to like older film scores or something, but did not work. I also hated Denzel's character. I really, I talked about this a bit before. I didn't feel like that was pulled off well. Obviously he's very charismatic, but I almost think he was like the incorrect choice for this character with how he acts, and it does not capture, it misses the point of some of the original film. Again, not as much as Oldboy did, but it still misses the points of why it did some certain things. And yeah, just disappointing to see from, again, from an acclaimed, talented director like Spike Lee. But we move. Again, from acclaimed, talented directors. This one surprised me. We have the movie Presence at number 47 from Steven Soderbergh. This was kind of a, this was a funny, like, I don't know, multiple layers of pretentious film watcher experience, because I remember when this came out and I saw like the trailer for it and I heard about the concept. The concept is basically it's a haunted house ghost movie told from the perspective of the ghost. And I heard vaguely when it came out that like, oh, people didn't like it because like, people went to it expecting a horror movie and then it wasn't scary and it was like all artsy and like people were like, this is so boring. And so when I went in to watch it, or, I was like, man, I'm gonna, with my superior film knowledge, I got a whole film degree. Like I'm gonna see what these people did not see, how it's not boring and stupid, how it's actually super artistic and whatever. And then I watched it and I was like, wait a minute, no, this actually is boring and stupid. Like it looped all the way back around where I was like, dang, no, this actually, people were right. This is kind of dumb. I think it's a cool concept for sure. And I guess it's impressive as a technical feat, like how they pulled this off, how you do POV ghost movie. That's kind of interesting. I guess I would watch like a behind the scenes thing maybe. But it just lost me as it went along, where especially towards the end, it gets really stupid, but it has, I hate when movies do this, especially from, talented people like Steven Soderbergh, like intelligent, talented people, which kind of surprised me that he would make this, where a movie, because it has like a gimmick, or it has some kind of like artsy angle to it, it almost excuses itself for being like lazy in other areas or having like kind of basic or shitty writing, or like just there were dialogue scenes early on where I was like, okay, well it's kind of shitty dialogue and like it's kind of poorly acted and like a little bit surprising. Honestly, I mean, I'll talk about this a little bit later on with Den Siste Viking, but I think there is, and I can talk about that because it's Danish or whatever. There is like a little bit of a trick of like you watch a foreign language movie and people are like, I think because people, feel like they've done something smart there and like a little bit artsy and like, wow, I watched, a film that's not in English, it must be kind of smart. And you let go a little bit of I feel like that happened a little bit with Den Siste Viking, The Last Viking, where you let go a little bit of your criticisms because you're like, oh, well, this was artsy, whatever. But if, as someone who is Danish, who was watching it, I feel like I could see more directly of like, no, actually, this is like kind of not very good. And I feel like it's a little bit like that with like artsier movies like this, where it goes for some artsy angle and then you're like, ooh, no, I'm watching like a slow burn movie. Like it's, it's not like a regular horror movie with jump scares and stuff. This is like, really methodical and like technically done. And you can like maybe trick yourself into thinking it isn't shittily written. But then if you just watch the dialogue scenes and you watch where the story goes, I won't spoil it, but the there's a bit at the end that's meant to be very dramatic that made me laugh out loud because it was so fucking bad and stupid. And it's just, I guess it felt a little bit like a movie that thought, well, because we've done this gimmick, we can get away with like not paying as close attention or doing as much with the story and the dialogue and that kind of stuff. But that did not work for me, unfortunately. Because also the gimmick was like cool, but it wasn't, fucking mind blowing where you can forgive all of the story being, or the parts of the story being kind of ass. It was, I wouldn't call it a boring film, but those are my thoughts. Next up at 46, we have The Amateur. the most nothing fucking movie you could possibly watch. Like, why did I see this in the cinema? Seriously. Like, I could have done so many other things with... I knew exactly what it was going to be, and it was exactly that. It is a normal, generic thriller, watch on a plane type movie. I gained nothing from watching it. It is peak, like... I don't know if they still show movies on TV or whatever, like they used to back in my day. But like peak, you turn on some random channel and it's playing at like 3 p.m. and you're like, okay, I guess I'll like watch some of this, and then you turn it off because it's fucking boring. Like, it's all pretty fine. It's decent, I guess, but like watch the trailer basically, and all the cool moments in the trailer, and you've had a great experience condensed into those 2 minutes, because the whole thing is just, there's 0 point in watching it. Little harsh, but I'm sorry, that's just how I feel. Number 45, we have the movie Havoc. Another disappointing film from a talented director. This is, what's the director's name? Gareth Edwards, I think, who did the Raid movies, Raid 1 and 2, which, I've only seen Raid 1, but I'm gonna make an assumption that Raid 2 is similar to it, and Raid 1 is, unbelievable action film. The story, it's okay, but you're there. That's a film where like the gimmick does outweigh the story. Like, and it's not even a bad story, but when the story's like a little bit stupid, you're like, okay, but it does have the coolest fucking, fist fights and action scenes that I've ever seen. So I was pretty excited for this. That guy making a movie with Tom Hardy, sure. And yeah, I was quite let down by the action. I think there's nothing in this that's like on the Raid level. There are a couple of scenes that are kind of close. There's, I think, a scene in a club that is like pretty great action-wise. Like, that was quite impressive. Some of the action scenes are pretty great. Some are okay. And there are some that are like, honestly, some action scenes that are honestly like kind of bad. And mainly I'm thinking of the opening scene. To be generous and, charitable to the film here, maybe it is going for this like Sin City-ish fake aesthetic. Like, Sin City doesn't look real, and it kind of has this like CGI-ishness, but like not in a bad way. Like, it has a kind of like a fake look to it, I guess. I don't know if it's like CGI-ishness, but the opening scene here, there's like a car chase or like a truck chase or some shit that is so obviously, computer generated, but not in a way that's like really trying to hide it, I guess. Like, there's like camera movements that are, you just know, like, you can't do that with a real camera the way it's moving around. So I guess it's like a stylistic choice, but it just kind of looks like shit, and it's not really that engaging. And for a guy who made, the Raid movies, which have this very real, gritty feel to the action. I mean, it's heightened, obviously, but it's like, you feel there's weight to it, for sure. I felt like there was no weight to that scene. And a couple of other action scenes I just remember being, like, underwhelmed by. And then the story is the most, like, generic cliche. I mean, like straight out of again, like kind of a fake movie that characters in a movie would watch, where it's like, a cop with a new partner, but he doesn't work well with others, and the mayor is being blackmailed by the mob, or so, just like, I mean, minimal effort, it felt like, was put into the the writing of that script. So yeah, the script was kind of stinky, and the action scenes were nothing really to write home about besides like one of them. Disappointing for what this could have been. Number 44, I've got Death of the Unicorn, the Unicorn movie with Jenna Ortega and Paul Rudd. Another disappointment, I have to say. I thought the trailer looked pretty fun for this. But this is just it ends up being another one of those rich people, satire, aren't rich people, stupid and eccentric type of movies, which we've seen like so many of now that it's become so tired. Like what was once biting satire and, quite well done. Like, I quite liked The Menu, but that's the one that comes to mind for me. But now it's been done to death so many times that it's not like, it doesn't come across as, biting or clever or anything. And yeah, it's not a bad movie. I wouldn't say like you definitely shouldn't watch it. It's just not as funny or interesting as I think it could have been, or I was kind of hoping it would be based on the trailer. It's a great cast, obviously. But yeah, I feel like it never pushes the limits of, what could be so funny about its premise or the way it's done. Even like sort of some horror stuff. There's kind of like a horror-ish action scene. Like, it never really does anything that crazy or interesting with it. You think, you hear Death of a Unicorn, you see the trailer, like, you think it's kind of going for this, like, whoa, isn't this such a crazy, funny, premise? And it just never really, I don't know, fulfilled that for me. And towards the end, I remember also thinking, like, this is, like, I don't want to say, like, jumping the shark, because it's, like, Death of a Unicorn. But it didn't stick the landing for me. So yeah, not the worst movie you could watch. Just a little disappointing, I suppose. Number 43, I have The Last Viking, Den Siste Viking, a Danish film. Now, I don't want to be too harsh here. I want to show my Danish bias a little bit, I guess, because this is a Danish film, and I'm a Danish man. But like I was saying before, I feel like an American might watch this and be like, ooh, like I'm watching a Danish movie. Like, it must be sort of clever because, it's a prestigious Danish director and it's like from, a different part of the world, and it isn't that interesting, whatever. But I have to say, just watching it, a little bit more objectively and with my Danishness in play, not our best work as a country of filmmakers. I think a lot of the Danish sense of humor is quite, there's a tendency towards black humor, I guess. There's, a little bit of offensiveness, a bit of crudeness, a little bit of, like dark humor, like I can't believe you did that kind of thing. And I think some of it's very funny. When it hits, but when it doesn't hit, then I'm not saying like it's an offensive movie, but it borders on the offensive. I'm not going to lie. And that's the trade-off you make when you make like a dark humor joke, is that if you pull it off, then you get extra credit for it. It's like, wow, you talked about like a sensitive subject matter and actually made it funny. Like, that's crazy. But if you don't pull it off, then yeah, the downside is like, actually, this is a little weird. Where like the main joke of this movie is mentally disabled people. Aren't they so weird? Isn't that hilarious? And like, there comes a point where I'm like, this feels a little bit weird, like the way you're doing this. Like, yeah, I'm not a comedy prude or anything where I'm easily offended by things. And I wouldn't even say like I was offended by it. If anything, the jokes are just kind of fucking lazy. Like, you can only do that bit so many times, even if you do think that's funny. And, Mads Mikkelsen, he plays the character well, and, there's some comedic beats that he hits quite well. But at a certain point when it's just kind of the same joke over and over again, like, wow, he says something, but it's not what you would think he would say. And that's because he has like a mental disability. Isn't that hilarious? And you do that for like 2 hours. If it was funny initially, it loses some of its fucking shine by the end. And yeah, I mean, it also tries to tie in like a wholesomeness to the whole thing. And I don't know, I just didn't really buy it. Like the backstory scenes, the like emotional scenes feel pretty like corny and cheesy for a movie that is sort of so like, look, we're making like jokes that maybe you shouldn't be making, whatever. And then you do these like cheesy ass backstory scenes. Also, speaking of like, yeah, offensive jokes for like sort of the sake of it, like there are a bunch of jokes with, not a bunch, but there are a few jokes about like women being hurt, which again is like, look, we're doing, dark humor. But if it isn't funny, it's just kind of like, yeah, it's like, oh, the gag was like this woman was, beautiful and very vain, and then something terrible happens to her. Now she's like ugly and horrible. Like, isn't that hilarious? And it's just not really like, I don't know. That was just, I guess I was also a little bit a little pissed off because I was in like a packed cinema and people were rolling with laughter. They were fucking dying watching this movie. And I was like sitting there in the middle, like, what is wrong with you? Like, not even like, what's wrong with you? Like, how dare you laugh at this? But I was just like, this is this funny to you? Like, I guess I'm being like a Grinch. Like, if people enjoyed this and thought it was funny, that's great. And maybe that indicates that maybe I'm the odd one out because everyone in my cinema fucking loved it. But yeah, man, I don't know. I thought that was a bit, yeah. Also, just in terms of like pacing, there's like a middle chunk of this movie that feels like you're stuck in it for fucking ever. Like, they go to this house or whatever, and it feels like it's the same scene playing over and over again. Yeah, I mean, good cast, and again, Danish movie, and I'm a fan of the director and everything. I want everyone to succeed and have good times in Denmark, whatever. But I also, I gotta be honest, and this was not it. I feel like I've been pretty harsh here. Like, there are jokes that do work. The performances are great. And there are some, that's the thing. The way I've painted it, like, it might sound like a very mean-spirited movie. Obviously, it still has, like, a, you know, overarching message about, you know, that they're brothers and they have a sweet relationship, and it's not, like, kicking mentally disabled people the entire time or something. There is, like, a, you know, an obvious nice message in the whole thing. But, I mean, at the same time, a lot of the humor is based on that, and, you know, I didn't think it always worked. Also, just a funny thing that I think I saw in, like, a Letterboxd review or something, but something that I feel like I noted subconsciously while watching it, but then when I read that, I was like, wait a minute, yeah, that's very obvious. Most of this movie takes place, it's all meant to take place in Denmark, and most of it takes place in like, place that is obviously not Denmark. Like, anyone who's Danish knows that is not a Danish forest. Like, it's so clearly not Denmark, clearly Sweden. And I just thought that was funny. They do have this, like, giant, you know, establishing shot of this forest. And yeah, when you think about it, it's like, that is, if you've been in Denmark or you lived in Denmark, like, that is not a Danish forest at all. But yeah, anyway, Last Viking. Those are my thoughts on that. Moving on to the next film, we have Mickey 17, which is a little bit similar to The Last Viking, I suppose, in the sense that it's a good director, being a little bit disappointing, I suppose. But yeah, Mickey 17, obviously following up Bong Joon-ho's Parasite is an unenviable task, but it is emblematic of my problems with Bong Joon-ho's English language films, and I definitely distinguish his Korean films and his English films, because his English films are noticeably, I don't know, less subtle, more in your face, just less enjoyable or clever, in my opinion. And not that all of his Korean films are, like, incredibly subtle, you know. Like, I mean, Parasite is unbelievable. You know, could be argued if you call it, like, a subtle movie, but it's an incredible film. The Host is not, you know, particularly subtle, but still great. But in comparison to Snowpiercer, Okja, and now Mickey 17, his social political commentary, which, you know, is in all of his films, it is just so dumbed down and, like, in your face. And, you know, he's making, you know, good points about society and don't kill animals or whatever Okja was about. Like, I'm not against his message about, like, the rich ruling class are, you know, shitty and whatnot. It's just even if you agree with the message of satire, I feel like you can still criticize the way the satire is done. And it's just the over-the-topness. I think my running theory is that he thinks English-speaking audiences are just dumber than Korean audiences, which, like, you might have a point. I don't know. But, like, I think mainly in terms of the villains. In Snowpiercer, I think it's Tilda Swinton. I can't remember who it is in Okja, and here it's Mark Ruffalo and Toni Collette, I think. And they are just, like, these, you know, unbelievably over-the-top, sniveling, you know, mugging villains. And it's just not, like, that funny or clever. It's like, I get the point you're making. Like, it's very obvious, the point you're making. But just, yeah, I don't know if I would call it lazy, but I just find it kind of uninteresting. And especially for someone who made, you know, great films like Parasite, like Memories of Murder, to do this kind of thing, I don't know. The fact that it's consistent across his English filmography, I also think speaks to some kind of pattern. It's not just like a one-off where this particular one was like this. And I also think, honestly, I mean, I could let go of that. Like, I still think Okja's, you know, quite good. I still think Snowpiercer is pretty solid. But what, like, sort of demotes this movie to, honestly, I think I gave it like a 2.5, which I would say is, like, you know, 3 stars is a good movie, so 2.5 is below that. Man, is it fucking, like, boring and dull and repetitive. I remember watching it and, like, 30 minutes in, I was thinking, I don't know, 30 minutes, you know, it was somewhere towards the first half. I was like, wow, like, I feel like we've already seen all the stuff from the trailer, basically. That's really cool that they made the trailer where they only put stuff from, like, this first bit in. I wonder what the rest of this movie is going to be. And I was like, oh, wait, no. I quickly realized the rest of the movie wasn't really in the trailers because it's kind of just the same shit over and over again. It's just sort of the same going in a circle type of scenes that are not really, it has sort of like just like a sludge movie feeling. Like, I was like getting through it and I wasn't really into it. And again, just surprising for someone as, you know, great as Bong Joon-ho. And I think what speaks, like, something that exemplifies this or highlights this is I actually had the opportunity to see it again with a Q&A from Bong Joon-ho. Like, I could have been there watching, you know, Bong spit some facts. And I decided not to go because I had such a like uninteresting time watching it the first time. I was like, actually, like I would love to see a Bong Joon-ho Q&A. I genuinely don't want to sit through this like long kind of dull movie again. And so I didn't go. And I think that like the fact that I would skip out on a Bong Joon-ho Q&A, I think that speaks to the film. Yeah. So disappointing. It had a lot going for it, and it's not like a terrible movie. Like I feel like with a movie that's supposed to be really good and it's not as good as you'd expect, you highlight the bad stuff more. Obviously, Bong Joon-ho is still very talented. There's still lots of parts of the film that do work. There's still some great performances as well. But overall, just not really that funny. Not very like insightful or poignant. Like not really making a point where I was like, "Whoa, that's crazy!" Like it's like quite in your face, obvious stuff. I thought the finale was kind of over. Kind of stupid. I don't remember exactly. I remember there's like a big fight at the end, or there's like a big stampede or something. I just thought like, I'm not really into this. I'm sorry, Bong Joon-ho. Was not really into Mickey 17. One of the bigger disappointments of the year for me, personally. Next up, at number 41, I have K-pop Demon Hunters. Now, I'm sorry that this is so low, because I realize this is, a big favorite of a lot of people this year. This is kind of like movie of the year. And it's not, I'm not going to like say any controversial, like, this movie sucks, I hate it. If you love this movie, I totally get it. And I think I really enjoyed quite a bit of it. Honestly, maybe 2.5 is a little harsh. I like the animation style and the creativity, the frenetic energy of it, especially towards the start. I got a kick out of that. I think honestly it was just when it gets more to like the plot stuff, especially in the second half, and it's more like generic kids movie-ish, like, main character has a secret and then the secret is revealed to her friends and like, but the friends do understand her, but she thinks they won't understand her. And then they all come together and have it's very predictable kids movie script, which it's a kids movie. It's fine. But I was hearing about it beforehand. I was like, man, this is movie of the year. Everyone's loving K-pop Demon Hunters. And I was expecting kind of like a Spider-Verse style, like mind-blowing experience. And yeah, it was like very fun, frenetic animation, energy, all this stuff with like a pretty basic kids movie story underneath it. So yeah, I can see why people, had a lot of fun with it. I can see why it was a big cultural phenomenon. I'm also not like a big K-pop guy. I don't have anything like against it. I just don't listen to it really. And so the songs that are hugely popular, they didn't do a ton for me either. So I can see why this was super popular. Just not really, didn't blow me away, I guess. Number 40. This one I am gonna get mean on. I am gonna probably, I don't know. I'll try to rein in my vitriol a little bit. But number 40 is A House of Dynamite. Bro, oh my god, it feels like this movie was designed to piss me off, and like it was designed for me to do a big rant about. It's funny because I watched this movie around the time I talked about Weapons, where I was saying Weapons' storytelling mechanic of like using different perspectives was not utilized enough, and that annoyed me and stuff. Man, House of Dynamite made me feel very bad for criticizing Weapons for that, because this is a whole other level of fucking up that storytelling technique. Basically, if you haven't seen it, this is Catherine Bigelow of The Hurt Locker and Zero Dark 30 and Point Break, inexplicably, but I've seen The Hurt Locker and Point Break. I don't know if Point Break is a great indicator of like her current career, but The Hurt Locker is very tense and very good, and this was basically, it's the story of a nuclear bomb is headed for America, and everyone's freaking out, and it's told from different perspectives. It's like, I think it's in 3 different sections, and it's told from like one control room over here, and then a different control room, and then like the president's perspective. And holy fuck, man, what a... I mean, it hurts me to say like a blue-balling anticlimactic movie, because obviously that's the point. Spoiler, okay, I'm just going to talk spoilers here. You can skip to the next movie if you don't want to know spoilers. Obviously the point is that it's anticlimactic, because I'm sure if you brought this up as a criticism to Catherine Bigelow or people who made this movie, they'd be like, yes, and actually, obviously, because it ends with the bomb not going off. Basically, every story ends like the second before the nuke hits, or doesn't hit, or whatever the fuck happens. But before you find out what's going on. And I think it would piss me off less if the different perspectives weren't so fucking pointless. Because the first story, when you're first getting into it, I did not know this premise going in, really. I thought it was great. I thought it was like a fucking 4-star. I was like, this is going to be like the best movie of the year. It was, very tense, very well acted. It's like Rebecca Ferguson, and it's very like harrowing, because it does a good job of feeling pretty real, of like, wow, a nuke is headed for America. This is fucking crazy. Like, it put you in that position where it's like the world's about to change forever. The world might end. Like, I thought it did a great job of building that tension. And then the nuke is about to hit, and then we cut to a different thing. And your immediate reaction is like, come on. Like, you're about to get the payoff. What's going to happen? Is it going to hit? Is it going to stop? What's going on? And then it cuts. But then I was like, okay, it's an artsy movie. They're trying something different. I'm here for it. I'm going to, let you do your thing. But then it cut in the service of doing the same shit again. Like, the whole point, like I said in that weapons thing, of doing different perspectives is that you can add different things. You can add, like, layers to what you can recontextualize things that happened before. All this kind of shit. And they just did the same bit again where a nuke is coming. Isn't that, scary? But first of all, we already know all the stuff that's going on. Like, all the defenses they try to deploy. They're not going to work. We already know this. We've gotten over the initial, like, shock factor of, like, wow, what if, like, a nuke was coming? That's crazy. Because now we've already seen it once. So it has way less impact. And it adds very little to the story. A lot of the stuff that's added in these, like, different segments is this, like, just generic, like, people in the military and the government also have families and they would be scared too if a nuke was coming. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Like, that's not as crazy a revelation as it seems like you think, movie, to give it this kind of structure where, like, that would be a big reveal or something. Because also, I'm sorry I'm, like, fucking ranting here, but, like, the people in the different stories are on, like, a fucking Zoom call in each different story. So it's not like we're even seeing a perspective that, like, we had no idea was happening. We've heard basically what they're talking about, and then you get to hear, like, a little extra behind the scenes of what went in before they said the thing you heard in the last story. But it doesn't change that much, you know what I mean? It's not like you're getting a whole different perspective. It was just such a waste, and also such a, like, hiding behind a gimmick thing. I think I talked about this with, I don't know, some other fucking movie earlier, maybe Presence or something. But, like, where you've done a gimmick that's, like, a little bit artsy, and you think that's enough to, like, trick people into being like, whoa, it was really clever because, like, it did something a movie doesn't normally do, when you haven't actually utilized it properly. Like, that just, I don't know. And then at the end, when it ended, and it was clearly meant to be poignant, where it's like, and then you never find out what happened with the nuke, and it's all about, like, humanity, and, you care about the people you care about, and the guy in Congress will call his wife before the nuke hits or whatever. Like, yeah, what was the point of the movie? What was the thesis of the movie? That it would be scary if a nuke was coming? Like, yeah, no, I could have seen that. That people in government and the military, also have families for whom they would be scared if a nuke was coming. I could also imagine that. And you could do a movie with this type of message or whatever that could be effective, even if it's sort of, an obvious thing. Honestly, the first section of the movie, if that was the whole movie, if that was, developed on and done in a different style, it was very tense. It was very good. But the way you did it, first of all, it pissed me off, so I'm already going to be, like, more uncharitable to your film. But I just felt like it was such a waste and such a thinking it's smart without actually really saying anything. Like, the bits where, I guess, I'll conclude here. But the bits where it's showing, like, the different things, and, and then this person, thinks about their wife or their daughter who they're estranged from or whatever. You don't go into any depth. You don't get, like, an actual connection. It just feels like, holiday card type of, like, father and daughter, and now you care about it because that's, like, a dynamic you're supposed to care about, without actually giving us any, like, story or character or context to care about. It's just, like, the lazy movie thing where it's like, look, a person calls their husband, like, that is something you care about because you have people you care about in your life, and it's like, that's not enough to get me that invested in it, That's, I don't know. Also, Idris Elba as the president, he talks about a fucking podcast at the end or whatever, and that was stupid. He also seems very, like, not that pressed about the nuclear bomb coming, mainly because of the podcast thing. Like, he's doing, like, borderline quips as the president when the nuke is coming. And I know, like, our current president, it's not really a standard to measure up on, like, and he would be a strong leader and really smart in this situation. But, like, Idris Elba, I feel like I would expect Idris Elba president to not be doing, like, MCU-style quips when a fucking nuke is coming. So anyway, The House of Dynamite, it was supposed to be, like, super smart and super deep. I did not fuck with it, evidently. Next up, we have The Materialists, the Celine Song movie, which I also have talked about a little bit more in depth. Another disappointing movie. I feel like there were a lot of movies this year that were kind of disappointing that I was expecting a lot out of. Yeah, I've talked in depth about this already, but It can't really quite nail down what it wants to be. Like, it wants to be a like deconstruction of the rom-com and also like modern dating, while also being sort of a cheesy rom-com. And there's bad dialogue, and the stories are not meshed together super well. Like, there's the Pedro Pascal story, then there's the Chris Evans story, and then there's the client of hers story, and it doesn't come together in as interesting or satisfying ways it could have. And there's no, it's like a movie that's like terrified of drama. It's like, it'll be really deep if like we don't have any, a third wheel, not third wheel, what's it called? Love triangle conflict in this movie. But then it's sort of just like flat the entire time. It's, just a quite underwhelming movie from a, talented director. So, you hate to see it. Next up is Relay. Speaking of talented directors, bro, the guy who did Hell or High Water, which is one of my favorite movies of the 2010s. This movie Relay, it's about Riz Ahmed and Lily James and some kind of corporate government deal or whatever. For a lot of it, pretty solid movie, pretty like decent thriller. And then the like last 30 minutes happen, and on the one hand, there's like a twist towards the end, which I guess I won't spoil. On the one hand, it does recontextualize the rest of the film in a way where I'm like, okay, because I had some problems with like some of the characters and some of their actions and how the story was playing out, and I was like, that's kind of stupid, I don't know about that. And then there's a twist that sort of redeems that. It's like, okay, I guess that makes more sense. But then it opens up like a whole new flood of questions where you're like, wait a minute, actually, like a lot of this makes way less sense now, or it's like way stupider. And it becomes almost like, it's sort of, a kind of tense, semi-realistic in some ways movie. And it becomes like very cartoonish. And yeah, it kind of dropped off a cliff for me. It was like a 3.5 movie, and then it was like, it's kind of dumb. So now, I think it's like a 2.5. But yeah, sort of interesting, I guess, but dumb ending, in my opinion. Number 37, we have The Naked Gun, the reboot with, or sequel or whatever, with Liam Neeson. This is I feel a little bit bad about this, because I don't want to be, a lot of people thought this was funny, including people I saw it with. Like, I saw it with a few friends, and most of them thought it was very funny. They had a great time. And so I don't want to be the guy who's like, it wasn't funny, but like, I watched the first Naked Gun recently as well, and I know this is going to be blasphemous. Low-key, I do not think that's like the greatest comedy ever. Like, here's how I'd put it. I liked watching it, and there are like 3 jokes in that movie that made me like die laughing, like crying laughing. They were so funny. And then the rest of it was, sort of like maybe you smile or you do the little like nose exhale, like, that's sort of, the funny whatever gag. It's a little bit Family Guy, like where you throw a million fucking jokes at the wall and, some of them hit and some of them don't. I realize comparing the original Naked Gun to Family Guy is like, terrible, but I don't know, man. I guess it's not exactly my sense of humor. Actually, Seth MacFarlane was involved in this one, so I feel like the Family Guy Naked Gun connection is not that crazy. And this movie, I think, is worse than the first one, but it's a little bit the same where, it's a joke a minute thing, and some of them, I don't know, maybe 2 of them sort of hit, like that they're really, I remember like laughing a lot, and like, I don't know, 70% of them are like, that's generous, 60% of them are like, that's sort of like nose exhale, it's kind of funny. And then the rest are like, I realize I've not done this in like comparable metrics here, but like the rest are then just not funny. Like, I'm sorry, there were jokes in this film where I was like, are we going to pretend that that's like really funny? Like, I don't know. There are jokes where I'm like, who would find this funny? I don't know. That's such a fucking grinchy way to put it, but like, I guess that's the thing about Naked Gun, Family Guy type of humor. Even, it's directed by Akiva from The Lonely Island. Even The Lonely Island humor, which I'm a huge fan of The Lonely Island. And there are bits in this that feel very Lonely Island coded. The snowman bit in particular, I feel like that was very Lonely Island. And some of those are funny, and then, I don't know. Some of it just doesn't work for me. It's not exactly my type of humor. Yeah, that's all I really got to say about that. I like Liam Neeson in the role. I think he's pretty funny. But yeah, I didn't think it was that hilarious. That's just my take. Number 36, got Ballerina, the John Wick movie. Totally pretty solid movie. Yeah, the action is not as good as the John Wick movies, but it's still pretty decent. There's some memorable bits. I like the bit when she has the hose and the guy has the flamethrower. You know, that went pretty hard. I just think the story is not all that interesting. The John Wick cameo / appearance feels like, I remember feeling a little shoehorned in there. Yeah, it's a movie that I watched and I was entertained by while watching it. Then I like can't really remember anything that happened in it. Decent enough. I feel like you could find the action scenes like on YouTube at some point. Like that would sort of be the highlights of the movie. Yeah, solid enough movie, I'd say. Number 35 is The Smashing Machine from Benny Safdie and Dwayne Johnson. Dwayne Johnson's big, I'm an actor now, awards push. Man, disappointing movie, for sure. I was pretty excited for this. I'm for everything that can be said about Dwayne Johnson. I've followed his career. I've had on the Poorly Planned podcast, we've had inside jokes about Dwayne Johnson, and I was a little bit excited to see him like push. I'm always excited to see an actor try to like push their boundaries as an actor and see what they can do. And obviously, Benny Safdie has been involved in some good movies, so I was curious to see this, and I was / still kind of am a fan of the UFC. So there was a lot going for this, and it was very underwhelming. Talk about like flat, anticlimactic movies. It's very one note, which is, I guess dramas can be that sometimes, but I never felt like there was really any sort of dynamic change in like the the structure or the plot or what was going on. Like it just felt very much, okay, he's fighting and he's mean to his wife and he's like doing drugs and then he's not doing drugs. And like, that's kind of the whole thing. Like it just kind of kept going, you know what I mean? And it made it a little bit of a slog to get through. It made it feel a little bit like a homework assignment watching it. Like, yeah, I also think speaking of the highest to lowest music stuff, I feel like the weird like jazz music score, again, I think it's supposed to be like artsy and whatnot, but I didn't feel like it fit very well. I think the MMA / boxing fighters that they get for the other actors, like Ryan Bader plays Mark Coleman, maybe? I don't know, his friend. Ryan Bader, I mean, for a UFC fighter or whatever, Bellator fighter, not a terrible actor, but, noticeably not an actor. I mean, Usyk is kind of fun, his little cameo, I guess. He doesn't do a ton of acting, but, he's pretty solid. But yeah, considering, I don't know why they would get Ryan Bader to be like a major part of this film, because he's not an actor. Like, he's fine, but wouldn't it be better to get a big actor, like a physically big actor who you could teach to look kind of like he knows how to fight, than get a fighter to play this character? Because also, like, in terms, you'd think, like, oh, they got Ryan Bader because they're doing, like, a big fight scene, big UFC scene. I mean, the Ryan Bader fighting scenes, you could have easily slotted someone else in there and just made them look like they could do that choreography, I feel like. It's not like some major, like, one-take action scene where you had to get a real fighter. Yeah, just one note. Also, Dwayne's performance, I'm gonna be honest, I don't think it was, like, mind-blowing. I think he was good, and it's certainly, like, the best or most challenging role he's had in his career. But, like, he's not, I was never like, I don't see Dwayne Johnson at all here. Like, I still saw him a little bit. There are a couple of moments, he changes his voice, but there are a couple of moments when he's talking where, like, well, that just sounds like Dwayne a bit. And not that it all comes down to, like, doing the voice correctly, but you'd think from watching the trailer, from all the promo or whatever, you'd be like, wow, Dwayne Johnson, he's completely transformed. And I did not feel that way. I'm trying to think of, like, a comparable example where, like, someone did really transform. It was a very good performance. I don't think it's like, holy shit, I never knew Dwayne could do this. I feel like I suspected, Dwayne's always been a good actor. I feel like, yeah, he could do a performance like this. And he did, and he was pretty good. Emily Blunt is very good in it. But yeah, a very static movie, I guess. It just feels like sort of, sometimes it's like the same bits again and again. And maybe that's the point, to show he was like stuck in his life and whatever, I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. It was also, I didn't really root for him. Like, it's sort of supposed to be a troubled man type of movie where it's like, yeah, he's super shitty to his wife and his life is, complicated and bad, but like deep down you see his heart, whatever. But I was kind of like, I don't know, this guy seems kind of just like a bad dude. Like, I don't know, maybe he's not, maybe that's the movie doing that, but like, I never got the sense of like, oh, this troubled guy, but like, I gotta root for him. Like, I was like, I don't know, you just kind of hate your wife and you have a bad relationship with her and you're shitty to her, and like, it's not good, I guess. And like, I'm glad you're not doing those drugs anymore, but yeah, I don't feel like a great, like, yes, go go Mark Coleman or Mark Kerr or whatever, or even like a wow, so profound, so interesting. Yeah, just a bit of a nothing movie, bit of a wet fart, unfortunately. Number 34, we have Nuremberg, the World War II movie with Russell Crowe and Rami Malek. I did a review of this. Yeah, pretty solid, like, fundamentals of the film, pretty solid production design, good performances. There's some tense courtroom moments, but I think it falls apart a little bit in its, like, movie-ness, like, doing big kind of, like, yeah, movie-style moments that I didn't particularly enjoy, and I felt like took away from the weight of, you know, the Nuremberg trials, which is such a massive historical thing and so serious and complicated and very interesting, and to do these sort of goofy movie moments, especially the ending with Goering with the pill or whatever. Yeah, that straight up, that took it down like almost a whole star for me, that fucking ending. But yeah, pretty solid, I suppose. Number 33 is Caught Stealing, Darren Aronofsky's latest film. I liked Caught Stealing. I thought it was, yeah, it had the problem that I sometimes complain about, where it just sort of kept going. Like, it was like, and then another thing, and then another thing, and you were kind of, I feel like it drained its goodwill as it went along, because it just, like, would not end. But I thought it was a memorable experience, at least. Like, I remember bits of this film, and I guess I appreciate Darren Aronofsky doing something a little bit different, doing, like, more of a Guy Ritchie-ish type of thing. He does still get some Darren Aronofsky, like, gross out moments, like, isn't this, you know, fucked up type of thing, where, like, someone will vomit directly onto the camera, or some gross thing will happen, or some torturous thing or whatever. Like, a pretty dark movie. Like, you watch the trailer, you think this looks like a fun, like, Guy Ritchie type of thing. It's still pretty grim. I guess that's the Aronofsky factor there. And sometimes, honestly, yeah, actually, I shouldn't have, like, said, and, you know, Darren Aronofsky going somewhere different. Because my problem with some of his films is, like, a little bit Lars von Trier, where it's like, and then what if, like, this really fucked up thing happened? Wouldn't that be crazy? And it feels a little try hard. And there are points of this movie a little bit where it's like, and then what if another fucked up thing happened, and another terrible thing happened to this guy? And I'm like, okay. So it's not a very, I guess it's sort of fun, but it's not a super fun movie. It's pretty dark. But it's quite well made. It has a little bit of a charm of, like, being a normal movie, like, you know, in a time when we get so many blockbusters and whatever, and slop, garbage, franchise stuff, like, just seeing, like, a normal ass movie in the cinema, that was kind of fun. But yeah, dark movie, kind of well made. I think Austin Butler's great. Yeah, interesting. I'd say it's worth a watch. Nothing mind-blowing, though. Number 32, I've got Freaky Tales. This is a film from the, I can't remember their names, Bowden and someone, who did Captain Marvel, among other things. But I actually got to see this with a Q&A from them, which was kind of cool. As a movie, though, it was a little bit, actually, I've always wondered this with, like, Q&As and that kind of stuff, where if you show your movie and, like, it's low-key kind of mid, like, an audience, you can always get a feeling for, like, when a movie was mid, like, everyone just kind of, like, gets up and, like, okay, and, you know, everyone just walks out. And I always thought it'd be funny if, like, if you show a mid movie and then come out and do a Q&A, like, can you feel the energy from the audience if, like, everyone's like, yeah, all right, and you have to talk about, like, how much work you put into it and all that. Like, I was like, that would be kind of awkward. And it was a little bit like that, because I feel like in the audience there was a little bit like, okay, you know, and then they came out. But I don't know if they could feel that, but they seemed cool. Yeah, the movie was, yeah, pretty cool, I guess. A little bit mid. I did see it a while ago, so I'm struggling slightly to remember exactly what happens in it. But I think this is another multiple perspective story, but it's less like, it's more triptych, is that the word or whatever, where it's like separate stories, but they interlock a little bit. It was pretty fun. I just remember, I don't know, thinking it was a little goofy. I guess it's meant to be goofy. It's meant to be sort of this, like, it does have a little bit of that, like, isn't this cool feel to it, where they think they've done something, like, really awesome, and, like, it's pretty cool, but it's not, I don't think it's, like, as cool as you think it is. But kind of a fun movie, I guess. I wouldn't say not worth a watch. Yeah, Freaky Tales. It is what it is. Number 31, I've got Mission Impossible 8, another film I've done a review for. Yeah, I hate to, like, overuse the word disappointing. I feel like this is going to be, like, a depressing video, but for Mission Impossible, which is such a great franchise, disappointing. I hate to say it. It is two unbelievable action scenes, or like it feels even wrong to call them scenes, like action segments that are, some of the greatest ever put to film, I feel like you could argue. Like, just truly spectacular stuff. Surrounded by all of the worst parts of Mission Impossible movies. Or not even worst, but like the parts that you don't come there for. Like, you don't go to a Mission Impossible movie for the long-winded exposition setting up the big stunt, the big heist, the big whatever the fuck. And so much of this movie is just talking about what they're about to do and like the technicalities, like the fucking schematics, as if like we won't believe you if you do this. It's like, I don't give a shit, dude. Like, put Tom Cruise in the fucking plane, put him in the submarine. That's great. I love that shit. I'll buy whatever you say. Like, I feel like in the other movies they were more like, and then they do a little joke about it. They put a little hat on it or whatever, like where, and then you're going to dive down and hold your breath for forever and then go through an electric grid and then do whatever. And he's like, sounds like a Tuesday or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, okay. And then we move on. We got it out of the way. It's silly, whatever. Let's get to the action scene. And here there was just so much fucking build up to this stuff. And also just so much, like, of the least interesting parts of storytelling, whatever, where it's like reminding you what happened in the last one and bringing back characters from other movies who it's not cool, it doesn't really mean anything, or like tying characters together. I'm the son of X character from the first movie. Just a lot of bullshit and a lot of like overly sappy, I know it's the last film, but like overly melodramatic stuff. And no, man, yeah, for films that are so high octane and so fun, the action was great, but I feel like they got too up their own ass a little bit, to be honest. I think they got a little too, like, we're prestige now. Like, bro, look at the fucking poster, man, where it's like, oh my god, Tom Cruise, black and white, staring at the camera. Like, this is not an Oscar movie, bro. You're Mission Impossible, which have been fantastic. 4, 5, 6, brilliant. Like, I think 6, even 7 didn't, like, I had problems with 7, but at least it had a ton of fucking action, and it was sort of, it was a bit melodramatic or whatever, but it was stupid. That was another thing. It was, like, dumber than most of them. But, like, there was a lot going on there. This one, my dad asked me, he was like, oh, there's a new Mission Impossible. Should I go see it? And I was like, honestly, like, maybe not. Like, I think you would find, like, it's kind of boring, a lot of it. I would honestly go see this movie, like, just go in for the stunts and the action, which is cool that you did the action so well. But also, these movies are not meant to be, like, a carnival ride where it's like, oh, yeah, you want to go see the guy do the big fun thing. Like, that's obviously part of it. But you also come for, the fun characters and the story and all that, and that was just like not really highlighted here as much as others. So yeah, Mission Impossible 8, sorry, that's where I'm putting it. Number 30, I'm going with The Running Man, the Edgar Wright film that I did a little review for. Yeah, like I said in my review, bits of it that are fun, middle chunk where it's like this montage of him doing running Manning stuff, basically. That's pretty good. Didn't love the ending. I thought the final bit got a little overstuffed and dumb. It's not Edgar Wright at like his best, which I guess maybe we should just accept. Maybe he's just done doing, Cornetto style Edgar Wright stuff. But even Edgar Wright not at his best, still pretty fun. Number 29, I'm going to go with Final Destination Bloodlines. No, Bloodlines? What's it called? Final Destination. It is called Bloodlines. Yeah, my bad. Yeah, this was my first Final Destination film. I'm aware of the concept, and honestly, I really enjoyed this. I had a lot of fun watching this. I thought it was it was charming in its self-awareness, I guess. There's a way that these movies get self-aware, where it gets annoying. I feel like the Fast and Furious films have done that, where they know it's ridiculous and silly, but it's like you're kind of ruining it by winking at the audience that much. And here they do some winking at the audience, but it's not. I don't know, it never really, it felt more fun than, like, annoying, and it didn't really cheapen the movie, even though, like, yeah, you're not really invested that much in, like, the story or the stakes, but it was a fine story. Again, these type of movies can have dog shit stories and dog shit acting and characters and whatever, and this was pretty competent for this kind of thing. Yeah, and it wasn't, I having not seen the others, I think I maybe associated it a bit with that, like, Saw aesthetic, where it's, like, just violence and whatever, and like torture and blood, and I'm not really into that. I don't think that's like that interesting or fun or whatever. But this did it in like a fun way where the kills are like stupid and over the top, and still, they make you go like, oh, bro. Like seeing this in the cinema, I imagine would be really fun. Yeah, I think it just handled this premise quite well. Also, I will say, and this is just like a side note, not to get like too into like personal stuff. And also, I'm not a doctor or anything. This is not a like medical advice. If you, do the same thing and it does not work out, I do not take responsibility for that. But as someone who has like a little bit of I don't know what it is, some kind of, anxiety-ish thing where you worry about like little things turning into, I think the word is catastrophizing, like, little things turning into bad things. Something's going to explode because something touched this and something fell over there, and then that's going to catch on fire. That's, something terrible is going to happen, that kind of thing, which I jest about, but it's genuinely a like very difficult thing to like live with. Low-key, this movie was like kind of therapeutic in a way, because it shows all that kind of stuff, like the kind of shit that goes through one's mind all the fucking time when you deal with this sort of thing. And to see it done in just like a funny, goofy way, in that moment at least, it sort of alleviated the thoughts a little bit. Like, I don't know, it was sort of like afterwards you think like, well, okay, is that tiny thing gonna do like a snowball effect into some terrible disaster, or is that like what would happen in a Final Destination movie? And then you sort of like, yeah, of course that's not a solve all. Also, if you have anxiety and watch this, it might put you like deeper into an anxiety hole. Like, again, I'm not making recommendations, but I will just say that was another part of it where I was like, okay, that was kind of, there was something interesting about that, I guess. Moving on to number 28, I've got How to Train Your Dragon, the live action movie. This is, yeah, I guess you fall on this however you fall on the live action remake thing, because yeah, you could go on a whole thing about how it's pointless and stupid and bad for Hollywood and creativity and whatnot. And like, yeah, you'd probably be right. You could probably make a very compelling argument. And I don't think it's as good as the animated one. I think, but I will say, I think of all the things you're gonna remake, I think this makes more sense than like The Lion King. Like, at least there's, people in this and big grand action scenes that can be kind of cool to see in live action. Like, I agree. I'm not like happy that these are getting made or whatever. But as long as they're getting made, like, I can't stop them from getting made. And going to the cinema, it's like going on a ride, I guess. And that's the fact that I have to qualify this movie with like, I enjoyed it because it was like going on a ride in an amusement park, is not a great indication of its like quality as a movie / the quality of Hollywood. But honestly, Martin Scorsese, when he was saying that stuff about Marvel movies being more theme park rides than cinema, I think he was absolutely right. And I don't think he meant it in like a way that was meant to be like, and you're stupid for liking these movies. But, and whether, it's Marvel or more this kind of stuff, you could argue, whatever. But like, yeah, this is not I don't really see this as like a film. I see it as, it was like a thing that people paid to make and work on, sort of like an amusement park ride. Like, I feel like I don't feel this like sense of creativity. It's like, okay, we're doing the How to Train Your Dragon project, and then you go to the cinema and like you hear the music and you see the visuals flying through over the water, and it's like a fun ride. And again, perhaps the fact that I am saying I liked it because it was like, it wasn't a movie, it was a theme park ride type feel, it should be like a 1-star. It should be like disqualified. But I'm going to put it at like a 3-star, somewhere around this place, because like, yeah, I enjoyed watching it. I just, of these live action remakes, I don't think this is like the most egregious. And it's like, it's well, for what it is, for the like product that I feel like it is, it's pretty well done. In terms of the creative bankruptcy or whatever, that's a whole other discussion. That's like totally fair to have. As a thing I went and saw in the cinema with my family, we had fun watching it. Like, that's why I'm putting it here. But yeah, I can see why there are other arguments on other sides of this. Number 27, I'm going to go with The Long Walk, the Stephen King adaptation. Honestly pretty good. I thought this was going to be dog shit, at least just from like the trailer and the poster and the title. Like, it just looks like a bad movie, The Long Walk. This looks like a fake movie. But it was pretty well done. Little bit one note, but that's sort of inevitable with this like one location type of movie, like where, you're just on this road and they're walking the whole time. And for that kind of movie, I guess I am impressed with the one location type films where they're able to make it interesting. As someone also who's like, someone interested in trying to get better at like screenwriting and stuff, I think it's an interesting experiment, how you make that work, how you make a one location sort of thing work. And I think it made it work okay. I don't think it's mind-blowing. I think the performances are very good. Yeah, I don't know. I just think it's like it's a fine movie. It was more like, I got a little bit more out of it, I feel like, watching it, trying to think about the writing process of it, than actually being like that entertained by it. I think it's also, it's interesting in a Hunger Games-y survival type of way. You put yourself in the shoes of the characters and like, okay, how long would I last? And, at night it's deep because you have to sleep, and then, people are going crazy and doing whatever. And yeah, it's sort of interesting, but not that interesting, actually, yeah. It's a fine movie, I think. Next up, we have After the Hunt, Luca Guadagnino's latest film. This one, I'll be honest, I think this film is more interesting than it might be, like, good, if that makes sense. Because I think I do have a little bit of a fascination now with films tackling modern-day society, especially from, some of our best directors. You've got PTA with One Battle After Another, Eddington from Ari Aster, and then here from Luca Guadagnino. There was a while where I thought it was sort of, I don't know, off-putting and cringe films trying to, like, be about modern-day issues, and I was like, yeah, they don't get it, whatever. And I don't know, maybe I've gotten older and more mature and appreciative, or the content itself has gotten better, but I feel like from prestige directors, it's cool to see how they are reflecting on our current times and society, and also these will be, like, time capsules of this time and, what was going on in society. So I think that's interesting. As a film itself, it's a little bit dull at times. It drags a little bit, but I think it's very well acted. I think, again, without spoiling it, ideas that it explores are interesting, and it's not. I kind of like that the whole point of it is the sort of horrible, mistrusting, gray sludge vibe of it all. A little bit like Eddington, to be honest, where it's not like a mystery film or a legal thriller where it's like, did he do it? Did he not do it? It's more about, like, in this, I guess in society in general, but in this modern day, like, social media age, distrusting people, not knowing who's telling the truth, who's not, being manipulated, and being, just having skeletons in your closet and all this, like, it's just kind of like Eddington. The main thing I liked about Eddington is that it captures the vibe of the 2020s, which is, like, shitty and bad, in my opinion, just like in society in general. And this sort of has that as well a little bit, which I think is interesting. Again, as a film, I don't think it's perfect or, like, even that great, but I found it to be one of the more compelling movies that I saw this year. At the very least, afterwards, I was compelled. I was, like, thinking about it quite a bit afterwards, and I wouldn't mind watching it again. So yeah, After the Hunt. I think it has, like, an interesting ending as well, again, without spoiling it, but the Julia Roberts character, some things are revealed, and I think that recontextualizes things and is making a point in an interesting way that could be, like, discussed or even, interpreted in various ways. I don't know, I found it to be a film I'd like to talk about, I suppose. Less so than, like, an actually great movie on its own. But yeah, After the Hunt could be a little higher on this list, I'm realizing, but, yeah, an interesting film. And a little bit similar, not exactly, but next up at number 25, we have Warfare. My voice went, like, crazy high there, by the way. Let's just ignore that. The movie Warfare from Alex Garland. This one's tough because I can appreciate how a lot of people really love this film and how well made it is. I think, like, on a technical level, this is, like a 5-star movie almost. I mean, it is very impressive. And as, like, a film experiment, I guess, in making like transporting you to a battlefield type of feel, like, really naturally, like, making you feel like you're actually there, capturing the atmosphere of this scenario. It does perfectly, flawlessly. I'll give it that for sure. I just think, for me personally, that doesn't do a massive amount for me. It's, like, more of a technical achievement than it is actually that compelling of a film, in my opinion. Because I think the mastery of, like, making it so realistic and making you feel like you're there is, like, step one to then telling a really compelling story or making a really compelling point or something, you know what I mean? And it to me, it felt a little bit like the film was more interested in, like, showing off that we can really make this feel like a real war zone. And then there's not much more to it than that. So if that does a lot for you, then this will be, like, a fantastic film. For me personally, I'm not saying I need to have, like, a big epic character moment and story. And, there was some film I talked about earlier, Nuremberg, where I felt it was, like, a little bit ruined by, like, trying too hard to be a movie and have, like, big lines and big reveals and whatever. Like, I'm not saying you need to do that. You can do a very realistic, grounded movie. but just a little more substance, I guess, is what I was looking for. And I'll be honest, I have this problem with Alex Garland's films a bit. I had this beef with Civil War, where it felt like it was using the Civil War premise, modern American Civil War, to get people in and be like, look, isn't this interesting? And then there wasn't really any substance to it, and there was substance to the story of the characters, but it was like a war photography movie that could have kind of been set in any war. Like, it didn't have to be in the Civil War. I kind of feel that way a little bit about Ex Machina as well, just in the sense that I feel like it has this very interesting premise, and then it doesn't really go as deep into it as you could. I feel like his films have great premises, and then he kind of skirts around the edge a little bit. He doesn't really want to touch it. And so with Warfare, I just feel like you set up, like, you could do something very thematically interesting, or something interesting with the characters, or say something about war as well. I had some conversations with people who were like, this is an anti-war movie and all this kind of stuff, and the conversations were interesting because I think you could debate, is it anti-war? It's like, you could argue, is it pro-war? I wouldn't argue it's pro-war, but I would say it's not an anti-war movie, which is a whole discussion for another day. I feel like I would want to, go in depth and not just shoot from the top of the dome on that one. Like, I have some points I want to make about that, because I think that's interesting. Like, what is an anti-war movie? Like, are there any anti-war movies? Is, like, depiction of war itself in some kind of heroic ways? In any ways that pro-war? These are very interesting conversations that I had that stemmed from the film, but they were not, like, spurred exactly by, like, what happened in the film. It was just, like, the film in general existing. The film itself kind of seemed fine to not really dive into, anything that much deeper besides, like, look at this war zone. Isn't this terrible? Isn't this, violent and scary? And aren't these people brave? And it is violent and scary. They were very brave. And it was very technically well done. Thumbs up. But just not as substantive as something that I would give it more credit, I guess, if I felt like I got more out of it, I suppose. That's my take on Warfare. But I would be interested in doing this anti-war movie thing, because it's a very nuanced conversation. I would love to, I don't know, maybe dive deep into that and see what can be said. But yeah, solid movie. Those are my thoughts. Number 24, I have Fantastic Four: The First Steps. Pretty solid MCU movie, pretty decent. I did feel it was a little bit, and this is ironic because I feel like there have been complaints about the MCU where it's like, I wish they would take it down a notch. It's not always the end of the world, whatever. It did feel kind of small to me, and I've said this to people, and like everyone's been like, yeah, I guess. Like, so maybe this is just me who feels this way. It felt a little small scale to me. It felt like, I don't know, I just feel like it mostly took place in, like, there's the Interstellar style scene, which is great. And then, like, the rest of it kind of takes place in the building and then, like, on the street. It had a little bit of, like, a bottle episode feel to it, to me. With the exception of that Interstellar scene, which, again, is, like, peak. I mean, that is, like, the best stuff the MCU has done in a long time. I was watching that, I was like, God damn, this is, like, one of the best MCU sequences I've ever seen. But the rest of the film, I guess I liked the 60s alternate dimension aesthetic, and like the opening, I think there's like an opening montage where it's like 60s vibes or whatever, that's all fun. But then also in that, like some of the emotional beats or whatever, I just remember Sue Storm's speech where she's, the crowd is like, give your baby to Galactus, and she says, actually, no, I love my baby, I'm not going to do that. And they're like, you know what, that's cool, for real. Like, and then that's the end of that. And I guess it's supposed to be like this 60s idealized dimension, where people are less cynical maybe, so it has this quicker turnaround, but I just thought that was a little bit silly. Like, I just thought the plot never really went anywhere that crazy. Like, they sort of touch on Reed Richards being like, maybe we should give our baby to Galactus. I'm just kidding, unless kind of thing. But didn't really go, I feel like you could have maybe gone harder on that. That could have been like a whole character arc, a whole, feud between him and the family or something, and then he realizes, no, of course you can't give our baby to Galactus. I don't know, maybe that's a bit irredeemable, like wanting to give up your your kid to Galactus, but also he's meant to be, a little bit like pure logic, whatever. I don't know. There were like aborted character arcs, like the Thing has this thing with Natasha Lyonne that feels like they cut out scenes that were meant to give it some substance. Like, it's like he meets Natasha Lyonne and then he meets her again briefly, and then like they have like a nice moment at the end. I don't know if it was more than that exactly, but I mean, it felt like there was meant to be more to that, because at the end I was like, I have no connection to you or her or this relationship. Yeah, I think it's solid. It's definitely fun. Like, I enjoyed watching it. But I didn't leave like having been blown away. Also, there's the CGI baby. wild in 2025 for a CGI baby to look that bad. I was like, this is some like 2011 style CGI. And I do think like Galactus on the small scale thing. I always thought of Galactus as like this, insane Marvel villain, like one of the biggest of the, I don't know much about the Marvel comics, but like the guy who can eat fucking planets. And then he's just sort of walking around, 60s Manhattan or wherever they are. And it didn't feel that deep. He felt sort of just like another big MCU villain, like physically big, but not that imposing. Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was pretty solid. It was pretty fun. I like the cast. I think they bring it together, like the fact that they're all good, and I can't remember his name, but the Johnny Storm guy, he's great. Vanessa Kirby, Pedro Pascal, cousin from The Bear, very fun together. I'd like to see them again. As a movie, pretty solid, in my opinion. Number 23, Loki. Now, this should definitely be higher. I have Bring Her Back, but this is definitely better than Predator, Badlands, and Zootopia 2, for sure. So just pretend I put this higher in the in the video. But I have Bring Her Back from the Philippou brothers, who did Talk to Me last year, or a few years ago. And the more I think about this movie, the more I like it. Because when I watched it, honestly, my big problems with it are more, it's just so bleak and so grim that I was like, I didn't really enjoy watching that, but I do respect it a lot, honestly, because they made Talk to Me was like quite a crowd pleaser movie. It was like a very mainstream horror movie. And this is like not what you would expect as a follow-up, I guess. Like this is, I realize I use like Von Trier-esque just to describe anything that's like depressing, but like for a follow-up movie to, like a popular mainstream horror movie, to have it be like, yeah, it's not Von Trier, it's not Michael Haneke, but it's like pretty fucking grim and sad and like unhappy. It's a very unhappy movie. There isn't like sort of a fun energy horror movie like, oh, I got scared, oh, there's a jump scare, oh, that's pretty creepy, that's so gross, whatever. It's like fucking, it's a depressing movie, really. And but it's effective. I think it's well done. I do feel like it is in its depressingness a little bit one note as well. I feel like I've described a few movies like that, but like I didn't really feel like it built or escalated to something that crazy. Like it just sort of, I don't know. I never felt like there was a big turn or anything. It just kind of went along, and it was like it's unhappy, and then it's a little bit more unhappy, and then it's kind of shocking, and then it's also unhappy, and I think that took away a little bit for me. But it is very well made, and I think to me the main takeaway from this was like I find this very promising for their career going forward. By the way, former YouTubers, I'm pretty sure, the Philippou brothers, shout out. That's fucking cool that they're making like genuinely really good horror movies now. But the fact that they followed up like a crowd pleaser with something that I wouldn't call it an anti-crowd pleaser, but I mean, something that is not the fun horror movie and that is like a bit more artistic maybe, and generally successful in being that, I think that's a good indicator that they're not going to like get bought up in their own hype or like try to recreate something. It's a good indicator that they're creative people who are like interested in actually making movies and like telling stories and stuff, which I think is really cool. So yeah, it wasn't like my favorite movie. I would definitely put it above the next two I'm going to say. But a promising film for their careers for sure, and quite well done. Number 22, I've got Predator Badlands. Fun movie. I really have very little to say about it. It feels like the Guardians of the Galaxy-ification of the Predator franchise, which I don't say like as an insult. A lot of movies try to do like MCU Guardians type of thing, and it doesn't really work out. This does it pretty well. It just makes it like not insanely remarkable. I think Prey, I've talked about it before. I love Prey. I think Prey was really, really great, and we'll get to Predator Killer of Killers. I really like Dan Trachtenberg's direction with the Predator franchise. I think he's very good at tying, like with these blockbuster type of stories, tying it all together well. Like that was something I liked about Prey. That could have just been like a legacy sequel, whatever. And the fact that it had a script that you could tell someone like thought about, where it ties together, this woman's place in her tribe and in her society with the Predator and her going after like it all thematically tied together in a way that these like legacy sequels that are lazy, would not necessarily put the effort in to do. And he also does that with action scenes really well. He incorporates various things that have been brought up before in the film in the action scenes in a clever, fun way, especially with Killer of Killers, which we'll talk about, which seems kind of like basic like action franchise movie making, but it's rarer these days than, it maybe used to be. And I appreciate the effort you can see there. And this film has that as well. It incorporates stuff that is brought up throughout the film into the action scenes, and it's a solidly written story. It's, it makes sense, and it's pretty good. It's not like unbelievable. But as far as like seeing a Predator film from a Predator perspective, that could be kind of jumping the shark, or like, ruining the premise. Like, the whole premise of the Predator is he's the villain, he's chasing you, he's a monster. So to do it like from the monster's perspective, that could feel like cash grabby and just like, oh, what's a different thing we can do with this franchise? But it was done quite well. Yeah, I think it was fun. Nothing too remarkable. A good time at the cinema. That's how I'd put it. Sort of similarly, number 21, I've got Zootopia 2, Zootopia. A very good follow-up to the first film. Like, exactly the same vibe as the first film, in my opinion, which comes with some of the same problems, and they're a little bit exacerbated because they're done again. So, like, the plot and maybe a villain reveal not being super unpredictable, it's kind of made worse because now it's doubly super unpredictable because you did it the last time. But very charming, funny, fun environments, great kids movie, and, adults aren't gonna hate watching it with their kids. Fun movie. Yeah, like exactly what you'd want from a Zootopia sequel, I think. If you like the first one, you'd like this one, and I guess that's what you want from a sequel. Number 20, I've got Wicked for Good, which I did also do a little review of recently, but to reiterate my thoughts, I'm kind of a sucker for, the musical, for the Broadway musical style stuff, and I enjoyed this basically as much as the first one. I thought, surprisingly, because I don't know, it's weird, I don't think these movies are, like, brilliantly made, or, like, extremely, I don't know, like, I've compared it to Harry Potter before, and, I'm very invested in Harry Potter. I was when I was a kid and when I was watching those movies. And I guess this is, much shorter. It's not an 8-movie series. But the fact, basically, the point I'm trying to get at, the fact that I was emotionally invested in just the second movie, it's just 1-2 movies, but I was actually into their, dynamic and their relationship, and I got a little emotional. I wasn't crying or anything, but I actually felt the emotional beats when they were happening, when they're singing for good or whatever. I thought that was impressive, because I don't view it as like a Harry Potter style, like, epic saga that I'm really invested in. But it still got me. I was still into the emotional conclusion, and I thought it was still pretty funny, and, it's a fun movie. It's a fun little musical. That sounds very patronizing, but I think it's very well cast. I think Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande are perfect choices for this. Jeff Goldblum is obviously delightful. Yeah, it was fun. I had a good time with Wicked 2. I like musicals. What can I say? At number 19, I've got Weapons, another film I've talked about, but I feel bad putting Weapons this low because I honestly really do like it. Like, I would watch Weapons again, like, no problem. Like, I think it is a very entertaining film. It's more like on a fundamental, I just have so many complaints with it that I feel like I can't put it higher than this, because I do think it doesn't utilize its premise, the different perspectives as well as it could have. It gets a little bit redundant with that. And I do think it's kind of anticlimactic. It has such a great setup, and then the payoff, while, she's great, Amy Madigan, I think that's her name, in the role, she's great and creepy and everything, but in terms of, like, the actual, what it is in the story, I don't think it's that compelling, and I don't think it's super scary. It has scary moments, but it's not nearly as scary as Barbarian to me. These are problems I have, while also acknowledging it's super entertaining. I think Julia Garner's great in it. It's a very compelling watch. Even though I don't love the way the mystery was weaved and how it went, I still thought it was like a cool mystery. I was still into it. And the fact that I would still watch it, I think I might have even said, like, I don't know how well this would hold up on a rewatch, whatever. I would watch it again. I think of it as like it having some cool moments. I still think there are, like, the cop and the drug user story thing. It drags a little bit and it's a little redundant at times. But I still liked it a lot. Not as much as Barbarian. But yeah, I'll put it number 19. That's just me. Next up at number 18, I've got Jay Kelly, the new Noah Baumbach film from or starring George Clooney. I liked Jay Kelly generally. I feel like I liked the first hour quite a bit, and then I felt like it dragged a little bit, and then at the end it got me back again. I was like, okay, that was quite a poignant ending. I feel like there are complaints that I was thinking while watching it that you could make that could be rebuked by saying, like, that's sort of the point of the film. Like, there are moments where I felt like it was a little bit of an obnoxious, like, look at me, I'm a Hollywood star, I have such a mansion, and, I'm doing all this nice stuff, isn't that cool? And then also moments where I was like, man, being a celebrity was so hard, even though I had, it's hard to kind of feel sorry for a George Clooney-esque character who, like, has everything, but also, maybe I'm still sad about some stuff. But that being said, that's kind of the point of the movie, I guess, it's about being a celebrity isn't everything, and, you have everything in the world, but then also you have nothing because you didn't spend enough time with your daughter, and, you were mean to people and whatnot, and, yeah, I think it would have hit harder if I was more invested in these characters' relationships, and then I don't think I even would have had the thought of, like, okay, but you're a celebrity, I don't really give a shit, which I think is, like, again, the whole point of the movie, but I don't think it was done well enough where I wasn't occasionally thinking that. Not that I didn't give a shit, but, like, it's hard to feel sorry for the successful movie star character, which the film's very aware of, and so it does a pretty good job considering that. I will say, not to be the guy who's like, well, I know a different version that's even better, actually, but, like, I will say it covers some thematic similar ground as BoJack Horseman, older star of Hollywood who's, has regrets about his past and was an asshole to some people and all this kind of stuff. And I just, throughout, I was just thinking, like, BoJack Horseman is just sort of, it's funnier than this. It's, I think, deeper than this. It hits on different things. And you can make arguments. Obviously, BoJack is a TV show. That's not really fair comparison, but I guess it wasn't ever that funny. It has this sort of dry sense of humor that I got like a couple of little nose breathe laughs at, but I didn't think it was like hilarious. And in terms of like the emotional depth of it, the ending did stick with me. And there was a flashback scene involving a woman he used to date. He's like on a film set, and I thought that was quite a good scene, but it didn't really hit super deep for me emotionally. It's a beautiful looking movie. It's gorgeously shot. It's set in some very nice locations. And it is interesting. It is like an interesting watch. It wasn't like a home run for me. And there was like, even though it's kind of what it's about, there was a slight like self-indulgence, like, yeah, we're deconstructing celebrity, but also kind of look how cool, it is being a celebrity a little bit. And also, but it's really hard to, I I don't want to be mean about it because I know the film's about that, but also there's like, it's kind of an inescapable feeling in it. Still quite a solid film. Number 17, I've got F1, the Brad Pitt, Joseph Kosinski movie. Fun movie. Totally the most like generic, basic movie story you will ever see. I mean, it is like as movie-ish as movies get. Will the grizzled old veteran who's washed up and he could have done it, but he never made it, is he gonna maybe have some beef with the young gun who's all excited and arrogant, and maybe will they learn something from each other along the way? Who's to say? I could never predict that. But, yeah, besides that, though, you use that as a framework to do the fun action. Kosinski's other movies, specifically Top Gun Maverick, Maverick's story is not amazing. That film's story is not amazing, but you have it as the groundwork for these super cool action scenes and the fast planes, in this case, the fast cars. And it does that really well. And to be fair, even though it's the most cliche generic story you've ever seen, I mean, there is a reason that story is done a lot. Like it's simple and effective, I suppose. It's kind of, it's not very interesting, but it's not like doing some crazy out there story that you're like, why the fuck would you do this? This is terrible. This is boring. This doesn't work at all. I guess you could say they did it because it works. It's not going to hit any like deep emotional chords. What's going to happen, but it's effective, I suppose. It does the job. But yeah, the racing scenes are pretty excellent. Brad Pitt is very charismatic. Everyone in it is quite charismatic. It has some songs in it. You know what I mean? Like it's a classic blockbuster you see in the cinema. It's fun. It's a fun movie. Just not anything, not anything that deep. But a good time. A good time for sure. Number 16, I've got the other Predator film from this year, the animated Predator Killer of Killers. I personally like this more than Predator Badlands. I will say, I think the first two stories, if you haven't seen it, it's a Predator film. It's divided into like 3 stories where the Predator goes to different points in time and battles some great warriors from that time. And spoiler alert, kind of, I don't know if this is a spoiler, but if you don't want to know anything, you can skip ahead. But then at the end, they are all taken by the Predator in some kind of time chambers, whatever, and they meet on a planet and they fight the Predator. I thought the first 2 stories, the like Viking and Japan stories, fantastic, really phenomenal. What I was talking about with Trachtenberg about like utilizing environmental elements in the action, different weapons in the action, the time period. Like, that's what I also thought was cool about Prey. I thought it was such a cool idea to send the Predator to a different point in time where you have to use different technology and, different environment and whatnot. Just like, this is what the Jurassic movies, I'm not saying send Jurassic movies, to different points in time, but like, you should learn from this of like creative ways to do something different where it's not just the same movie every single time. And with Predator, yeah, they're aliens who've showed up throughout human history, sure. Send them to different times. Send them to Viking times. Send them to, samurai Japan or whatever. Like, it's fucking cool. The Japan segment, genuinely, like, kind of 5 stars. Like, that segment alone, the action, the way it's animated, the, like, I guess you'd call it choreography of the action if it's animated, I don't know. Phenomenal. Like, genuinely some of the best stuff I've seen this year. That bit was great. And the Viking bit was cool as well. The World War II bit, it's okay. I don't love the sort of like quippy character they introduce. There's a little bit of my problem with Predator Badlands. I'm a Guardians of the Galaxy fan. I like the MCU, but like it becomes a little bit like, and now it's the character who does the quips, and he's gonna be like, did that just happen, sort of thing. And that, I found that to be like a little bit obnoxious, which is also why the final bit where they all team up to fight the big Predator or whatever on the Predator planet, that's part of why I didn't find that as compelling. And also just there was less of the cool creative environmental stuff I felt like as there was in like the Japan bit and even the Viking bit. Still solid though, still solid segments, just didn't hit as hard for me. But yeah, generally very well done and just a cool premise. I like Dan Trachtenberg doing this stuff, how he does it, and this idea of sending the Predator to different time periods and that kind of thing. I think it's just a cool idea to do it, how to handle the franchise. So yeah, shout out. Number 15, I've got Superman, James Gunn's Superman. This movie's definitely grown on me. When I saw it, and my problems remain, but I was like, this movie's overcrowded, and I spent a lot of my review complaining, I feel like I remember, which I do a lot actually. Maybe I should become a more positive person, I don't know. But in hindsight, rewatching it, it's fucking very charming. I don't know. Like, I just thought of it as like, man, if I saw this movie when I was like 13, like when I was first getting superhero movies, God, this movie would have been so fucking cool. Like, I really, I love the earnestness of Superman, the whole punk rocker thing. I think that's a great message, be kind and whatnot, and be a bit cheesy while being kind, that's still okay. And I think Nicholas Hoult is fantastic as Lex Luthor. Him and Lois are great together, even though, like, I think there's some stuff that's rushed and there's some stuff that's crammed together and all this kind of thing. Yeah, I stand by some of my problems with it, mainly just that there's, like, a lot crammed in here and you don't really get time to breathe on some stuff that maybe you should. But I found it to be very entertaining and very, very wholesome. Like, just, I don't know, and it gets me excited for the DC universe going forward. Like, it's a superhero movie that got me excited for future superhero movies, which does not happen that often these days. So yeah. And David Cornsweet, I think he's a great Superman to like lead this franchise forward. I really enjoyed Superman, I have to say. Number 14 is The Phoenician Scheme, Wes Anderson's latest film. I did make a little bit of a mistake of watching every Wes Anderson movie, kind of in the build up to this. So even still, I'm kind of fucking sick of the Wes Anderson style. The least bingeable filmography in film history, maybe. You get sick of that real fucking quick. But every once in a while, a Wes Anderson, you're like, man, this is kind of charming and quirky and fun. And that is how I felt about this. So maybe if I didn't have the Wes Anderson burnout, maybe I'd like this even more on like a rewatch in like a year's time or something. But the fact that I still quite enjoyed it, and I gave myself a little time between when I finished the sort of rewatch and watching this one, it is like a nice reminder of like, oh yeah, you can parody his style and it is a little bit obnoxious and whatnot. But if you see it every once in a while, you are like, damn, that is sort of impressive that they did that. And that is like kind of a cool aesthetic. And this is that. I don't think there's anything super stand out about it in his filmography. I just think it's a good example of what he does. And it didn't annoy me. Like there are some of them, like The French Dispatch, I feel like annoyed me, where I was like, this is just, you're a parody of yourself kind of thing. And I don't think this reaches the heights of the best of his work, like a Royal Tenenbaums or Grand Budapest Hotel. But it has that mix of, sort of melancholic, sardonic humor with melancholic but kind of wholesome story. I think it hits the comedic and emotional bits, not to the peak of what Wes Anderson can do, but like pretty well, better than some of his other films. So I enjoyed the Phoenician Scheme quite a bit. Number 13, I've got Frankenstein. Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, which is, like, if you just closed your eyes and pictured Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, this is it. Like, it is exactly what you'd expect, which is quite good. Just nothing that blew my mind. Like, I saw a Letterboxd review that was like, yep, that was definitely Frankenstein. It's like, yeah, it's the story of Frankenstein. And I guess you run into a little bit of that problem when you adapt a very well-known work that the story, exactly what's going to happen, and so there isn't really that much tension, and it can maybe get a little bit boring at times because what's going to happen. It's a very good adaptation. Like Guillermo del Toro, he has such a great style for this kind of story, for this fantastical beast story thing with the effects and the creature effect. The creature looks great. All the sets look very, I don't know if storybook is the right word, but in that Guillermo del Toro fantasy way, it's a great aesthetic for Frankenstein. It's just, yeah. I'm not that crazy into the story, and also I know what's going to happen, and so it doesn't blow my mind. But still good, and everyone's good in it, even though I thought Oscar Isaac was maybe like a little scenery chewing, but he's sort of supposed to be, I guess. Jacob Elordi is great as the beast or the monster or whatever. Yeah, visually very impressive. It's exactly what you'd expect from a Guillermo del Toro Frankenstein film, which is quite good, honestly. It's pretty good. Number 12, I have One of Them Days, one of the first films of the year, the Keke Palmer SZA buddy comedy. Just a really funny movie. I mean, I think with the exception of Friendship, which shows up later on this list, I think this is the film that made me laugh the most this year. You don't get a lot of these, like, this has been said a lot, but like, these straight comedy movies anymore. And this was like a good one. Like, I don't know. It was funny. There's not much more to say. I think Keke Palmer is like one of the most charismatic people in show business right now. And, SZA is also a very good actress as well. They're very fun together. I think, like a lot of comedies, its weak points are definitely when it's doing more of the story, especially towards the end, and the character moments, and, it's sort of a kind of cliche, predictable story. Again, like a lot of comedy movies. But again, the main part of a comedy is meant to make you laugh. And this made me laugh like multiple times throughout. It's, zany and fun, and it feels fresh. You know what I mean? It was like a fun, refreshing movie to watch. I enjoyed it. And also Cat Williams, who took a break from making like the worst stand-up specials of all time in the past couple years. He makes a fun cameo as well. It's good. I really enjoyed One of Them Days. Number 11, I've got Thunderbolts, the MCU movie. Man, I really like this as well. Speaking of BoJack Horseman, this has, a writer, one of the writers I think wrote some episodes of BoJack, and also The Bear. And I feel like you can tell. I feel like you can see that, I don't know, just the care that goes into the writing here. Obviously, it's also about depression and this sort of stuff, which are themes from The Bear and BoJack. But even you can tell people gave a shit about writing this, you know what I mean? Like, as opposed to Captain America 4, which, again, maybe people gave a shit and there were other circumstances that got in the way or whatever. But here, it felt like people gave a shit and they were given the opportunity to write something real, like a real movie. Like, yeah, Thunderbolts is not going to blow your mind, but it's what these movies used to be and can be, which is a superhero movie that's also a real movie with, like, a story that ties together and character arcs and this kind of stuff. What you'd expect from a movie, not just, like, random bullshit. And I appreciated that. And I thought it was funny. A lot of MCU movies, I've referenced, like, MCU humor a lot in a, like, negative way in videos. Genuinely made me laugh. Genuinely, like, a funny movie. I thought the characters were charming together. It had that MCU charm of, like, when the MCU was charming. To me, at least. I know some people never thought it was charming. I did at one point, and this captured that feeling for me. And I thought it was, like, a good story and a good message. I know some people are like, power of friendship, whatever. But, like, it was a for an MCU movie especially, a pretty well-written, kind of wholesome thing about, depression and being yourself and having friends and, whatnot. I don't know. But, like, I thought it was pretty well done. It's not, like, the deepest movie you've ever seen or anything. And it's not the funniest or craziest or best superhero movie of all time. It's quite well done. The characters are fun together. What more do you want? I enjoyed it quite a lot. Moving into the top 10 here, and this is basically, I'll run through these a little faster because I did make that video on the BHL Hudson channel. You can check that out. And perhaps Wake Up Dead Man and Avatar 3 will be in here. I don't know. I haven't seen them yet as of recording. But as of right now, my top 10. Number 10, 28 years later. Yeah, very good horror film and sort of interestingly unique. Not exactly what you were expecting, which I know some people did not really like, and some people really, really liked that it was, a bit out there. But I love to see, even if I wasn't on board with like every choice that was made, or I didn't think it was like brilliant, everything that was done, just to see something that clearly a creative person made. Clearly Danny Boyle made this. This feels more like a Danny Boyle movie than it does a horror movie that you just, like a random zombie movie you'd go see. And I like that a lot. I think there are some cool stylistic choices, like some kind of confusing stylistic choices, but at the same time, some of them kind of work and kind of, I don't know, it makes it a much more interesting, engaging experience. And the fact that it turns into this, like, I don't want to say depressing drama, but like a drama that's pretty bleak and grim sort of towards the end. Like, it doesn't, I can see why some people might call it like anticlimactic, but I felt like it was pretty poignant. Like in the moment, my mind wasn't blown, but I was thinking like, okay, it's an interesting way of doing this kind of film. Yeah, it's not a terribly scary movie, but it has some pretty tense action scenes when it has to. But it's an interestingly stylistic movie. That's how I'd put it. Enough so to crack the top 10. At number 9, I have Companion, the robot girlfriend movie from the start of the year. Man, this might be the biggest surprise of the year for me, honestly. I was surprised by how much I like Companion. A little bit like I was talking about with Thunderbolts, and maybe, my standards are just too low. But like to see a film that was, and also what I said about Dan Trachtenberg, to see a film that is just cleverly written, like that just clearly took a little bit of time and effort to think about how to utilize every part of this premise. I've talked about some films where I feel like the premise was not really, they didn't do that much with the premise or as much as they could have. And here, everything that you could do with this premise is done. And it's like in a funny way as well. Like I found myself laughing quite a bit throughout this. Just like a tight, clever script. I just really appreciate when a film has that. And especially when you're not expecting it. I thought this was going to be like, yeah, pretty fine, whatever movie. Funny, clever, really well done. I respect the people who made this. So Companion, definitely worth checking out. Number 8, I've got Bugonia. A film that, as I was watching it, I was, thinking about all the problems I had with it. I don't like this, and this is kind of stupid, and this is predictable, and this is heavy-handed, and whatever. And then as time went by, I was like, you know what? That was actually quite a well-done, like, clever, interesting movie. I still think it's heavy-handed, and I still think, I don't know, I don't love all the choices made in Bugonia, but I think the pros of it definitely outweigh the cons. And I think it is one of the more, again, like, the number of movies on this list where, like, I walked out of the cinema, I'm like, I'm never going to think about The Fucking Amateur again. You know what I mean? Like, the fact that there are films coming out that I'm, like, thinking about weeks later and, like, reevaluating my opinion and, like, oh, what did this part mean? Or what were they trying to say with this? Or that was an interesting stylistic thing they did. I just love that. I give a lot of credit for that when a film makes you think a little bit. And I think it has that going for it. Again, even if it is like a little bit predictable and obvious, like there is sort of I don't want to spoil it, but there's an element of it that is sort of, you can see coming from a mile away. But yeah, I think Jesse Plemons gives maybe my favorite performance of the year so far. Again, I haven't seen some of the Oscar contenders, but genuinely brilliant performance. I talked about this somewhere, but like he does such a great job of capturing all the nuances of this very strange, complex character, and he alternates between like unsettling and threatening to kind of sympathetic to, detestable to, like, he has a lot of range and he just does it perfectly. I think it's his best performance ever, maybe the best of the year so far in my opinion. Emma Stone is obviously great. Everyone's great in it. I don't know, it's hard to talk about without really spoiling it, but it's well done, and it didn't annoy me there was a point there where I thought, like, oh, is this going to be sort of a, like, look how weird and kind of, like, dark and grim and, like, look how weird and dark we can get. And it didn't end up doing that. I thought it was a very interesting film. So, yeah. Bugonia, number 8. Number 7, speaking of weird and dark, I've got Eddington. Which is funny because, I mean, yeah, Eddington is a film I definitely have problems with, especially I think its third act is too long, and it sort of does the Ari Aster thing where, like, and then it gets even crazier, and then what if it got crazier? And I'm like, okay, you're sort of losing me here, like, you're doing a little too much. But it's mostly here, and I'm sure I've said this in my top 10 of the year video, mostly here because of the feeling it captures so perfectly of, like, the 2020s, like, sludge brain, everyone's on their phone, everyone lives in a different reality, everyone's mad at each other all the time, this, like, fever dream nightmare that we have lived in, like, since COVID. Like, the way it captures COVID meets social media meets Trump America, you know, political division, and how that all has led to where we are now, which is, you know, not a good place as a society. And, you know, you have, like, data centers in the mix and whatnot, and, you know, all this. I feel like it captures the 2020s thing quite well, in the sense that, like, it'll be shown in the future to be like, this was a movie from the 2020s about the 2020s. Even if it doesn't, you know, you can talk about the actual intricacies of the plot and the nuances, but the feeling, I think Ari Aster is great at capturing feelings. Hereditary captures, like, the feeling of depression quite well. And this captures that, like, just, there was just a moment where I was like, I feel like shit watching this. And that's, like, kind of great. Like, it captures that feeling like shit feeling of, like, opening Twitter in 2020 type of feel. I just think that's really impressive that, like, it synthesized that feeling in me. Yeah, and it's well performed. You know, there you could get into, like, the nitty gritty of the film itself. I think, honestly, based on how it made me feel, that did a lot for me, and that's why it's on the top 10, in the top 10. Number 6, I have Friendship, the what's his name? Tim Robbins and Paul Rudd movie. Man, I thought this movie was fucking hilarious. I laughed out loud multiple times watching this. I'm not really familiar with Tim Robbins' work, especially because I'm not even sure if that is his actual name. But I've seen, you know, clips here and there, and he seems pretty funny. I think I'd be into it. But yeah, I watched this movie, like, not really being that familiar, and I should get into it, because his sense of humor, this movie's sense of humor, just totally worked for me. There are just so many, like, memorable bits, the subway bit, and I don't know, yeah, you know, I don't want to just, like, recount parts that I thought were funny, but however you would describe the sense of humor, this, you know, calling it quirky and offbeat feels sort of reductive, but whatever the sense of humor is, I thought it was hilarious. Funniest movie of the year for sure for me. So yeah, Friendship, enjoyed it a lot. Number 5, I have Nouvelle Vague, the Richard Linklater film. Well, one of the 2 Richard Linklater films this year. Super charming, you know, Richard Linklater, he just makes fucking charming ass movies, man. Just, like, fun, charming movies. It's a very, if you're not interested in film, it is a little bit, you know, for film nerds, but I think you could still enjoy it just on the pure, like, charm of the cast and the dialogue and the way, you know, just the Richard Linklater, the way he does things. I think the way it's shot, you know, or it's done in reverence to the French New Wave style, that's pretty cool, again, as, like, a film nerd or whatever. And as a film, like, wannabe filmmaker, such a inspirational movie, honestly. Like, it got me, because I'm planning on making a short film in the not too distant future that is very, like, I mean, I was gonna say low budget, like, no budget. It's me and my friend just making some shit. And, you know, this movie, when they're rolling around in a wheelbarrow and, yeah, just doing all the, like, filmmaking things without, like, the big production, whatever, just, like, with the creativity, and he's flowing and whatever. I'm sure I've talked about this in my top 10 video, like, a little bit more coherently. I'm just kind of rambling. But I just found it to be a very, like, relatable, as, you know, everyone who's made a movie with their friends, whatever, it has that kind of vibe to it, that thrown together and people are mad, but then it's fun, and then, you know, that kind of vibe. And as someone who wants to make movies and is going to make a short film sort of in, not in a French New Wave style, but in a, like, low budget, not a lot of frills and whatever, just kind of going for it, trying to make something artistic and cool style, I found it to be, like, the perfect movie to watch leading into that. I thought it was very inspirational in that way. So yeah, just a great time. Then at number 4, I've got the Chainsaw Man movie. Shout out to Lele. I'm sure I shouted him out earlier with the Demon Slayer thing, but he also took me to Chainsaw Man. Never seen Chainsaw Man before. I mean, I'm aware of the concept, but I've never watched the show. But he was like, hey, you want to go see this in the cinema? And I was like, yeah, that'd be pretty cool. Fucking crazy movie, man. Super cool movie. Very, I mean, incredibly animated. I mean, I will say there was a certain point, like, you know, the opening bit, the first bit of it, it's animated very well, and there's some fun stuff like when they're going to the different movies and all this kind of stuff. It's done quite well. There did come a certain point where I was like, isn't this guy like Chainsaw Man? Isn't he going to turn into like a chainsaw at some point? Like, what's going on? But then when he does, when the shit hits the fan and it basically doesn't stop hitting the fan for like for the rest of the movie, basically, unbelievable action and animation. And I mean, some of the genuinely most thrilling action I've seen in a film, like in a long time, and in the cinema as well. It was just fucking crazy to see on the big screen. So impressive animation wise. Just yeah, I can't even really describe it. Just fucking unbelievable action and animation. Also super funny. There was a gag in this with his shark friend that made me laugh really hard. One of the hardest laughs I've had in the cinema this year. Super cool movie. For someone also who is not even into Chainsaw Man or hasn't seen the show, I fucking thought it was like a crazy experience. So yeah, Chainsaw Man, very cool. Number 3, I've got Sinners. Sinners has been talked to death. But yeah, of course, as I've also said, I have some problems with it. Second half, whatever, and I don't think it's as strong as the first half. But I think it is sort of like movie of the year type of feel. It was such a cool event when it came out, and to watch an original creative movie like this in the cinema was just a great experience. And it is really well made. I mean, the music's great, the performances are fantastic, there is some cool action in it. There's especially the first half, in my opinion, just very well written and great build up and great atmosphere. Everyone knows Sinners is great. But yeah, Sinners is great. It's number 3. Number 2, I've got Black Bag. The other Steven Soderbergh movie this year. The first one, Presence, I was not crazy about. And this one, yeah, it just looked super generic and boring, whatever. I was like, okay, I guess I'll go see this. I'm seeing the fucking amateur in the cinema. I'll see fucking anything. I was like, yeah, I'll go see Black Bag just because why not? And sort of like I was talking about with Companion, just a tight script. I just fucking love a cleverly written movie. And it was just, like, it doesn't do a ton. Like, it would be sort of weird for me to say it's like my favorite movie of the year, because it doesn't feel like a crazy exceptional movie. Like, it's not mind-blowing, but it's just really well done. It's so much more interesting than the trailer makes it look. The trailer makes it look like this generic fucking spy thriller or whatever, who cares. The drama, the, intrigue and the deceptions and whatever. Yeah, just a banger movie. Just goes by like that. Really clever, well written. Highly recommend Black Bag if you've not seen it. And number 1, my favorite movie of the year. I'm going One Battle After Another. Yeah, it is. I wouldn't even say this is PTA. I wouldn't even say this is like top 5 PTA. But the fact that not even top 5 PTA is still number 1 of the year, that kind of speaks to how great PTA is. But yeah, I don't think it's as nuanced or interesting as some of his films. But it is like excellently made. Like, there was just something about seeing a PTA film in the cinema, but not just like in a novelty sense, like, whoa, PTA, I love it no matter what. But like to see PTA's filmmaking, like the craft in the cinema. Again, you've seen how much shit I saw in the cinema this year. Like you watch a lot of like low key kind of depressing shit in the cinema where you're like, wait a minute, do I even like movies? Like, what the fuck is this? To see like real creative filmmaking on the big screen, there's just something about it. Like, it hits different. And the film, it's very funny. It has so many memorable moments and characters. It obviously speaks to the current political moment in kind of like a crazily timely way, considering it was filmed, before Trump was even elected. And yeah, it is just very, very well made. I'm sure I've talked about it more in the actual BHL video, because I'm kind of blanking on like the exact superlatives I want to throw out here right now. But well performed, very well made, great score, very memorable. Makes you think, makes you talk. There's a film you can have conversations about. Obviously, they're fucking stupid online conversations that devolve into jarbled garbage or whatever. But an interesting film on tons of levels. The ending as well, the roads bit, fantastic. Just a great film. I would say it's the best film I've seen this year, at least at the moment. Low-key, I think Marty Supreme is going to be like super peak. I don't know why. I've just seen the trailer a bunch of times. I'm like, man, this looks so fucking good. I'm very excited for Marty Supreme. Also, No Other Choice. I think that's going to be a banger. But yeah, those were all the movies I've seen in 2025, ranked from my least favorite to my favorite. What do you think of my ranking? What were your favorite and least favorite movies of the year? Yeah, man, I'm fucking exhausted. This is a lot of movies to talk about. Yeah. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, drop a like, subscribe. You can find my main channel, BHL Hudson, my podcast, The Poorly Planned Podcast, my Instagram, BHL_Hudson, and my Letterboxd at RealBHL Hudson. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.